The EPM mission reads that we are a resource and voice for financial empowerment. The EPM vision, which is connected to the EPM way, is to continue to offer financial service, communication, and assistance to the communities we serve.
What makes us different is our loan officers. They care about the people. Our number one message in this company is the customer. Always do everything you can for that customer.
We as a staff work together as a team, and we also on one page, one goal, to know that the end goal is the other person, which is the home buyer.
The big thing that we want to do is provide financial empowerment to our consumers. The ramifications of not owning versus owning is very vast. So it's really about maximizing your earning potential to build wealth.
Our diversity, it's a large part of what sets us apart. And the way we look at business with an empathic approach, we do care.
I have grown up here. I've pretty much done almost every position here and have just grown and learned throughout the 10 years and been given tons of opportunity to advance. I can't tell you how much this place means to me.
My favorite part of EPM is the relationships that we build. I mean, I see my coworkers more than I even see my family throughout the week. So it's important that we have that relationship with each other. I know that I'm going to work hard with my coworkers, but I also know that I'm going to be able to have a fun time with them.
When you join EPM, it's like you're gaining a huge, giant family. The people here are just funny and amazing.
The 23 Fundamentals, or the EPM Way, is our new culture plan. They are led by great communication, ethics, morals. All in all, they make us better. They make us EPM. The idea of work and home is truly been blurred. So when our culture plan was created, we wanted to transcend just being in the office.
It's really about being a brotherhood, a sisterhood, but it's still all about one mission and one objective, is to make sure that we're not only leading to financial empowerment, but we're growing our communities, we're serving our communities, we're growing our individuals.
Most of the loans we're doing are for families. It's the biggest investment in their lives.
For me to know that every little part that goes into the end goal of home ownership makes a difference, and we're playing a big part of that for that prospective home buyer to have their future home.
There's certain programs that not every lender offers, and we try to offer as many of those programs as possible so anybody could kind of fit the mold with a program that we have and offer that to them, so then they could get that purchase done and own a home.
You know, the gold standard is treat somebody how you would want to be treated. I think that's the way people would want to be treated best. They want to make sure that somebody's looking out for their best interest, not yours, not the company, not the industry. So you definitely got to put yourself in their shoes and empathize and make sure you're looking and more importantly, listening very, very generously to what they're saying and what they're trying to accomplish.
It feels amazing to know that my team and I were able to contribute to a prospective buyer having their home. And for that home buyer to finally walk into the doors and have their home is just amazing, and we contributed to that.
It gives you a sense of pride in what we're doing here and gratitude to be able to help out those people get things and achieve their goals as well.
A lot of people talk about care, and the only way to truly care is through showing action and showing what you're doing for them in that moment.
We're able to help people to achieve the American dream, which is home ownership. But it's not just home ownership. That's your home. That's your family. So generations can be there just by one impactful movement that we do.
Live from iRacing's virtual Road America circuit at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the eRacing Association's 2022 Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Summerbowl. As always, we're happy to welcome you into the podium broadcast booth for the ERA pre-race show presented by Equity Prime Mortgage. As always, alongside of myself, Evan Pasoko, happy to be joined in the booth by NASCAR Xfinity Series driver and the man behind the ERA, that is Jesse Iwuji, along with Devin Henry, our producer downstairs, Ryan Bauer, and everybody else on the Podium Esports team bringing us to you tonight. And Jesse, we're back again for the second iteration of the Summer Bowl, which means we're going back road course racing for the first time since we did this deal last year in the summer at COTA. Tonight it is another staple of American motorsports at Road America on the docket.
I'm definitely looking forward to this. This should be pretty fun. And once again, we have EPM Equity Prime Mortgage back on board for this event. They've been amazing supporters of all of our events. And this Summer Bowl, yeah, we're back here at a road course. So these drivers, a lot of them are used to driving these ovals where they're turning left and turning left and turning left, which does require skill because driving ovals, especially in these Gen 7 cars, is not easy. But when you take these Gen 7 cars to the road courses, a place where they kind of look like their GT car counterparts, they're still not easy to drive. I mean, you have a lot of power with not much tire, and these things really got to get around these tracks that are very difficult to get around. So it should be pretty exciting to watch these guys fight for grip all night long. I'm looking forward to seeing who's going to come out on top and win that $4,000 first place prize.
As we've seen over the last 6 races with this EPM Omega Cup series, more than $30,000, Devin, have been given out over the course of those races. Tonight, as Jesse mentioned, $5,000 total, $4,000 to the winner. It's no surprise that this is drawing big names in sim racing. Several drivers from the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series going to be competing here tonight, of course. That prize money up to the drivers who are full-time drivers in the eRacing Association. So it's going to be a very exciting race at a pretty challenging racetrack. And as Jesse mentioned as well, in this next-gen car, which some of these drivers are still learning and maybe don't have a ton of time specifically on the road courses in yet.
And exactly, Jesse was talking about how difficult ovals can be. It's the rhythm, it's the flow of that kind of racing. Then you come to a road course, especially one over here at Road America. 14 corners, having the rhythm and the flow through 14 corners. One part of road racing that I still can't wrap my mind around is just the fact that you have to remember not just 14 corners individually, but then understanding as the car evolves to the run, as the tires heat up, as the tires wear, as the gas starts to fall out of the rear end of the car because you're using it up, how does the car change over the course of what we're going to race today, 167 miles on this track that's 4 miles long, how that car evolves and keeping up with it in terms of not being able to have those long caution flags like we have in real world racing. You have to deal with that car evolving over the course of this entire race, and having that rhythm and flow, that's going to be so important anytime that you visit a road course in any stock car. Even these that do look a lot like those road course cars, man, they're still tough to drive on road courses.
Well, Jesse, I'll ask you this question as the resident expert amongst the three of us, right? We talk about the differences oval racing versus road course racing. A lot of the oval races we've seen with this series, a lot of those races are influenced by the flow of the race, right? Where the yellows fall in the strategy, how that affects who's got what tires when and where. It's unlikely that we'll see a caution flag in this race unless we have a big issue, right? So these drivers are going to be able to kind of plan out their strategy from the get-go. They're going to know, I'm going to try to pit at this time. They have a pretty good idea of what they're going to do fuel-wise, pit strategy-wise, which isn't necessarily true when you go oval racing. So as a driver, do you like that? Or does it make you, feel a little bit more pressure on yourself knowing that once we drop the green flag, it's really up to you?
There's a lot of different ways to attack this track and really attack road courses versus ovals. With the ovals, yes, you are more likely to have more cautions, and those cautions could help you out with your strategy, or it could detract from your strategy. When you go to the road course, a lot of times there really isn't a full course caution because this track is absolutely massive. It's like 4 miles long or something like that. I mean, it's pretty massive. I mean, the lap times that they're running here are just over like 2 minutes. So it's a very long course. So if someone goes off track, if they wreck, anything like that, usually it's not in the way of everybody else. But really where you can start getting yourself into trouble is making mistakes. This is a track where you have a lot of high speed areas where you're cooking it, and then you go into an extremely low speed corner, and there's multiple instances along this track that happens. So there's a lot of places where you could just accidentally roast it. Going into a corner, you misjudge it. Next thing you know, you go completely off track. And once you slide into that grass or into the rumble out there and all the sand, you just keep going and going and going. It doesn't really slow you down. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in a wall, in a tire barrier. So there's a lot of different ways you can get yourself in trouble, and there won't be any cautions to save you after that. You got to take yourself into the pits, fix the car, get new tires, do this and that. And next thing you know, you might put yourself out of contention from having a good finish.
And so much of that is true at all of the road course races. And talking about some of the talent that's going to be in the field here this afternoon, last time out in February, it was Garrett Maines who took home the checkered flag at the virtual Daytona International Speedway on the high banks to claim the win in the Spring Bowl. He is here competing with us tonight at Road America, Jesse, and you are chatting with him.
Garrett, how's it going over there? I mean, you're on a road course now. You're in the Gen 7 car. It's Road America, not an easy place to get around. How's this track treating you so far?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I feel like I've learned this track a lot in the last 2 months, so I feel really confident coming in here that I can compete for the podium. Hopefully they mix it up in front of me. I know Vicente and Bobby are actually nuts, so hopefully we'll be here to pick up the scraps and see what we can do.
I mean, you're definitely a good driver for sure, and it looks like you want to show some of your fans some of your driving skills. I see that GoPro on your head. How does that help you with streaming, and what kind of view does it give the fans at home who get to watch you?
Yeah, you get to see what I get to see. So I'm live on Twitch right now, Garrett Maines 1, and I've got a couple cameras, one on my face, one on my feet, and then obviously the GoPro on my head. So you get to see everything that goes on, and how much of a handful this is.
So you say you have one on your feet, right? So on typical oval track, especially when you're going to 1.5 mile, 2 mile, or even, big super speedway, you're not really using the brake, maybe a little bit here and there for different things. But for the most part, you're just kind of on and off the throttle, right? But now you're going to a road course where you're braking, you're downshifting, you're upshifting, you're doing all that stuff. Tell us, for the folks who are going to be watching your feet, what kind of footwork is necessary to really get around this track?
Oh, we're on the brakes hard tonight. There's a lot of sectors where we're almost maxing out the brake force. It's going to be really tricky. I don't know how the starts are going to be because I haven't practiced behind people when we're in dirty air trying to stop. It's a lot of shifting here. It's a lot of engine braking. You got to be really precise with all your points to keep up. But I think it's going to be who can be the most consistent. I feel like these tires peak after a few laps, so just keeping them keeping it on the track and keeping it under you.
That's definitely true for sure. I mean, with these tires, they're a lot different than what the tires used to be for the Gen 6 car. You have a tire that looks and resembles a little bit more like what you see, on the streets or what you see in GT racing. Now, how do those feel compared to what we used to have in the old Gen 6 car?
Yeah, I think this tire, it just holds up a lot better over a run. So you get away with, maybe a little bit of abuse at the start of the run, and then as long as you keep everything together, you have that pace, and it basically plateaus. You run flat times for the last, half of the run, versus the Gen 6. If you punished it early, you were being punished later on, and you would just continue to fall off very, very hard as the tires aged.
That makes sense for sure. And all these drivers out here, everybody's learning this year as we phased in this new Gen 7 car. A lot of people taking these cars to these tracks that they've never been to and having to learn. So it's really cool to see you out there. And it's great to have you once again in this event. Let's see how you do out there. Love that you're in a Chevrolet. That's awesome. Kudos to you. And good luck out there. Have fun.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Garrett Maines is going to be looking to become the second different multi-time race winner in the Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Series. Trying to back up that win from Daytona, but he's going to have to get through the man who is starting on a pole position here tonight, Vicente Salas, at the number one time in qualifying, 2:10.024. That was 4/10, Jesse, up on the next closest driver.
Wow, 4/10. I mean, it's so crazy to see how close they are. So, Vicente, you're on pole. You've won one of these, actually multiple of these events before. How does it feel to be on pole, starting here? In a Gen 7 car, Road America. You're being watched by a lot of people tonight. What's that feel for you?
Oh, it feels awesome. I think it's definitely a good thing to start on the upper hand, but it's definitely going to be a good battle here between me, Bobby, Garrett, and Clamp. So I think it'll be a really fun race to watch.
I bet it will be for sure. So how have you been feeling with this car, this new style, everything with this track? What's been your take on it? What have you been feeling? What's the differences between this Gen 7 now and the Gen 6?
Oh, it's a completely different car. We can play with the master cylinders now. Brake bias is a little different. Throttle brake input's all different. So it's been a learning curve for sure, learning it for obviously the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series, and now jumping here to our first road course, in which we go to Road America, I think, in like 2 or 3 races in that Coke series. So definitely going to be a good learning take here today, and just going to try and learn as much as I can.
Now, you're pretty fortunate. You're starting on pole. So going into turn 1, which is definitely, a lot of speed getting carried into there and having to slow down. And hopefully, everybody does the same as well and gets through their clean. But, being out front obviously helps because you don't have to worry about people in front of you. So you can go through there as fast as you really want. But you do have people behind you who are trying to take that spot, and they might be willing to throw it in there. So what's your strategy, knowing that, hey, you have a whole team of people behind you, a gang of people behind you, really trying to get ahead of you and get through turn 1 better than you can?
I think it's definitely going to be a game of cat and mouse. Bobby, Clamp, and Garrett are going to be pushing on me, and I mean probably the whole top 10. So it's definitely just going to be about keeping a balance of saving your tires and keeping your brakes happy versus going hard and trying to keep the lead. So maybe we'll see some position swapping, but ideally I'm going to try to hold the lead. So.
Most definitely. And you've shown for sure in the last few races that you've ran with us that you're very capable of holding that lead. So I look forward to watching how lap 1, lap 2 goes and seeing how everything plays out, because this is a fun track to watch. A lot of things can happen. A lot of places where people can make mistakes. What's your strategy and what's your thoughts on, really trying to stay as consistent as possible so that, you, I guess, can minimize mistakes? Because here, once again, a lot of people can make mistakes here.
Yes, I think, obviously we're going to have to really focus on keeping the rear tires on it. These stock cars at road courses with all the weight under them, they tend to absolutely burn the rears down. So we're going to have to watch our throttle, watch our brake. And, Bobby being an eNASCAR Coca-Cola winner at the road courses multiple times over the past few years, he's probably the best at it, or one of the best. So I'm going to have it cut out for me here. So, I mean, if I don't end up winning, at least I learned something from him for the show in a couple weeks. But either way, it's going to be a fun one.
Well, he might seem like the best, but hey, you're starting pole. I mean, that's something to show for. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it plays out. Looking forward to watching you race out there and all the other drivers. Thank you so much for running this event, and good luck.
Thank you, Jesse, and thank you to everyone in the booth.
That is your pole sitter, Vicente Salas, the defending Summer Bowl winner. He won at Circuit of the Americas last summer. That, though, was at a Gen 6. Tonight, he has to do it at an X-Gen car. We'll take an opportunity to step aside. When we come back, we are going to say, let's go racing from Road America. Thank you for watching the eRacing Association Omega Cup Summer Bowl pre-race show presented by Equity Prime Mortgage. We're going racing next on Podium Esports. And back live from America's National Park of Speed as we are ready to go racing for the Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Summerbowl on Podium Esports. Qualifying has come and gone. We are about set to go racing for 162 laps tonight. Let's take a look at your Equity Prime Mortgage starting grid. And it is Vicente Salas, best in practice, best in qualifying. He will bring us to the green flag alongside NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series counterparts in Bobby Zelensky second, Garrett Maines third, and Logan Clampett in the number 4 position. They're all ahead of Aaron Ramon and Luis Vega on a row at number 3, Devin.
Sitting in number 7 position, Richard Woodruff will be in that number 2 car. P8, Thomas Edwards in the black and white, number 7. Nicholas Compton in the number 90 machine will sit in 9. Bruno Castro Alves in the 11th position to start off this race. David Chassar and David Barnes, pair Davids, make up row number 6.
Kyle Wisner is going to find himself in the lucky number 13 starting spot alongside Julian Ritchie at 14th. First to Bachman in 15th, along with Cody Smith on the outside of row number 8, with Ryan Barrios and Jason Rayholk in P18.
Then rounding out the field, Christopher Reagan, Thomas Brzek, and Trent Kuziak make up the rest of the field today as we get ready for Summerbowl here at Road America.
So look top to bottom at your Equity Prime Mortgage starting grid. And of course, we've referenced it already tonight, but let's talk about this beautiful circuit known as Road America. It's one of the world's classic road course racing venues and has been host to every important North American racing series, beginning to back with SCCA sports cars back in the 1950s. This racetrack clocks in at a whopping 4.048 miles in length. It has 14 corners and a lot of long straightaways. That means we're going to see a lot of high speed and heavy braking zones over the course of this race.
You got to go back to September 10th, 1955. That's that first SCCA race that you're mentioning there, Evan. And after that first race, it took less than a year for NASCAR, the Cup Series, to visit this track on August 12th, 1956. That race won in the 1956 Mercury. Tim Flock taking the victory from the 6th starting position. NASCAR, though, would not return until just last year, 2021. But a beautiful course, 167 miles tonight. Like you said, a whopping 4 miles. Boy, these are long laps here, guys.
These are long laps, Jesse, and we talk about all the money on the line tonight as well. You got those big names from the Coke Series inside of the top 4 as we pace around, coming to the green flag the next time through. I did mention, of course, that prize money is available to the drivers who are eRacing Association members. If somebody's sitting at home joining us tonight, how do they get involved when we do this thing again in a couple of months, looking towards the Fall Bowl?
The cool thing about eRacing Association is that these events that we're putting on, anybody can actually sign up as a member, and if you're good enough, you'll qualify your way into this main event today. So if you head to www.eragaming.gg, you'll see the list of events that we have there, and as long as you sign up as a member, you're basically able to compete in any of the events that we put on throughout the year. We have 4 big Omega Cup Series events, which is where we're on iRacing, which to me is the best platform for sim racing out there, but we're on iRacing putting on these events, and you have an opportunity from home, from your sim seat at home, the opportunity to win thousands and thousands of dollars throughout the year if you're able to finish on that podium or really in that top 5. So make sure you head to www.eragaming.gg and let's see what you can do.
There's a look at one of the drivers who has a real good look at winning this one. Anytime Bobby Zelensky, Devin, is at a road course race, he is a heavy favorite, but again, has been bested tonight by Vicente in every aspect. Vicente was P1 in practice, P1 in qualifying, and is the defending road course race winner here with the eRacing Association Omega Cup. However, these drivers are also, I think, maybe using this as a little bit of practice. They both referenced it. The eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series is going to be racing here on July 5th. That race, though, only going to be 25 laps. So let's not forget that 40 laps here is a significant long race. It's about 2/3 of the NASCAR Cup Series race distance that we'll see in about a month and change.
Yeah, they'll get plenty of practice here tonight. 4 pros, Salas, Bobby Zelensky, Garrett Maines, and Logan Clampett, all looking for some of that information to use. Here's like a Thomas Edwards using the VR in this race. He will start in 8th. We saw Road Rough a little bit earlier. He has a road racing wheel, if you will. So I gotta wonder, I've never used one of the road racing wheels before on iRacing. I'm really curious, even in a stock car, if that helps you or anything. Those wheels are so different from one another. The round wheels, the square wheels, and of course, I can never race in VR. Looking at Cody Smith here starting in 16th. Guys, I couldn't do it. I would get sick. I would go rolling everywhere, and I'd be throwing up on my cockpit. Don't need it.
It's not that bad, actually. It's not that bad. I actually use VR for training here at home myself with my own sim, and it is really not that bad. But I have had friends who have jumped in, and let's just say they didn't last too long with the VR. They get a little bit dizzy, a little bit of motion sickness. It gets a little wild for them. But we're getting pretty close to throwing that green flag right now. Things are about to get pretty heated.
I'll say my favorite thing about those onboard looks is you talk about wheels, you talk about monitors versus VR. Everybody can set it up to the way they would like. The pace car is off it in, though. The field in the hands of the number 13 of Vicente Salas as we come over the hill and say, let's go racing at Road America.
And they're off. Let's see what happens when they all go into turn 1. Is anybody going to try to outbrake the other? We'll find out. They're in their braking zone. They're braking, and everyone looks like they're getting through fairly clean right now. These guys are pretty good drivers. As you can see, they're falling in line here. Everybody really just watching their P's and Q's. Nobody wants to go off track. Nobody wants to burn off their tires. Everybody knows that it's a long race, and they have to get through it. But in order to finish first, they must first finish.
To the high-speed parts of the racetrack right here. Zelensky looking to the inside, down the Moraine sweep into the left-hander turn number 5. No dice there, though. Vicente stays in front, and now they'll go up the hill onto the Corvette Bridge, left-hander turn number 6. Now, this is the slower part of the racetrack. They have a lot of corners coming up here. Right-hand kink, turn number 7, on board with Zelensky. Then they're going to go down, hurry downs to turn number 8, and then head into the carousel that leads to the back straightaway.
And you know, Jesse was talking earlier about some of these corners where you can kind of get ahead of yourself, get on the gas a little bit too much, and the carousel is one of those places where you feel like you can carry all this speed into here. It's such a wide, sweeping corner. It is so easy to carry too much momentum. You burn off the tire, you overshoot the exit, you find yourself in that sand pit back there, and it is impossible to get out, like Jesse was mentioning. Such a fine line, especially as these tires wear off when you're going through hurry downs and into the carousel.
It's definitely difficult, that's for sure. I've done it a few times on iRacing where I've gone into the dirt or gone into the grass, and it is so difficult after that. It's difficult to control the vehicle while you're in it, and it's really difficult just to get yourself out. You continue to spin your tires, continue to fight to get out. You're almost spinning out one more time trying to get out. It's really tough. When I actually ran at Road America in my first ever Xfinity Series start, I was fortunate enough to not ever go off track. I didn't go into the dirt at all, but I did watch people that I was competing against go into the wrong parts of the track. So it happens here. It happens to the best of them. It doesn't matter what your skill level is. Everyone's pushing. Everyone's fighting for the same thing, which is a great finish. And sometimes you overstep that boundary, especially if it rains, which is what happened in my first Xfinity start.
Fortunately, sunny and dry here this afternoon, and no surprise, those top 4 have opened up a significant margin over Aaron Ramon P5 on back. It is still Salas 1, Zelensky 2, Maines 3, Clampett 4, and the order in which they started. You're looking on board there for a moment with the 31 Chevrolet of Garrett Maines in the number 3 spot. I get a real exciting preview for what we'll see in a couple of weeks' time with all these drivers and more in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Back down to that heavy braking zone. Turn number 5, you got 3 long straightaways, 3 heavy braking zones. The first one was that right-hander turn 1 that they all survived first time through. Second one right there on board with Luis Vega, the left-hander turn number 5. After that Moraine sweep. And then when we get all the way through the carousel, back half of the racetrack through Kettle Bottoms in the run from turn 11 to 12, Canada Corner, the third and final of those heavy braking zones. And Wisconsin. Well, this battle goes on between Vega and company. The battle up front heating up as well. Zelensky in the 18 Interstate Batteries entry, trying to get around Vicente Salas. Can't find a hole, but I'll tell you what, you wanted to know that they were 4/10 apart in qualifying, Devin, because Zelensky on top of Salas, and Baines and Clampett not slotting off at all as they keep pace with the race leader on lap 2.
And you know what, guys? We all see on social media the discussion, whether it be real world or sim world, about are these guys that good, or are pros that good in real life or sim world? These 4 pros outran the rest of the field by 4 to 5 seconds on lap number 1. That is the difference here between pro drivers and guys who aren't those Coca-Cola Series drivers. And it's similar to that in the real world racing as well, guys. So just goes to show you how much time and effort these guys put into a single race. Biggest mover so far, though, after about a lap and a half, this guy right here, Cody Smith, started 16th. He's halfway through the field in front of him, now looking to make the move for 7th.
Wow, it's absolutely incredible watching these drivers fight through these corners. I mean, it's not easy at all to drive these vehicles. You know, a lot of people who maybe aren't in the sim racing world, you know, will watch this and maybe think, oh, it's just a video game. It's just like, you know, whatever arcade game that you play at, you know, a Dave and Buster's or something like that. And it's just not. It's very difficult. Driving these vehicles on the sim in some ways can be more difficult than driving in real life, mainly because you don't really have that feel as far as feeling the actual vehicle, feeling it through your body, understanding where the grip is and where it's not. You're really having to do it based off of visual cues and also what you're feeling in the steering wheel if you have something that will give you good force feedback. But it's difficult to drive these things, especially on the sim, without that level of feedback that you get in the real life race car. And to watch these drivers out here competing, it's fun, it's cool to see how fast they are, how good they are, how precise they are. I even love watching Luis Vega. Luis Vega, I actually personally know him, and interesting story about him. When I first got into racing, he did some photography for me. He would come to the track and, you know, do photography because he was learning a lot, and then we stayed friends for a while. He spotted for me while I was in the NASCAR K&N Pro Series West. He actually ran a couple Pro Series West races on road courses. For the first time ever, he had never driven a race car in his life, jumped into a K&N Pro Series West race and finished like 11th, I believe. So he's actually a good driver. So to see him here competing is awesome. And he's actually worked for me in my trucking company, was one of my truck drivers for a while, drives semi-trucks. So the guy's just a wheelman all the way around.
A pro driver in the actual profession and in a race car as well, right? I think that goes to show you that when you have time in the sim, getting into a real race car doesn't have yet 100% yet, but it's certainly way better than starting at 0 and gives you a much better opportunity to learn and to grow those real-life talents. Of course, we'll keep an eye on the battle up front, but check it in throughout the field. David Barnes is down 2 spots early, and Thomas Mrazek on the move. The number 99 just in front of him has picked up a handful of positions. Mrazek already into the green by 8, along with Trent Cusack and Cody Smith, some of the biggest movers throughout the field. You can see, though, a little bit of front-end damage on that number 99 machine, so maybe the front bumper assisted on one of those passes, but Mrazek did not take a time in qualifying, and he's been able to get up through the field. And of course, on the last lap, we saw the change for the race lead. Bobby Zelensky made the pass out of Vicente Salas right down here at this part of the racetrack on the long run from turn 3 through 4, and then again the hard left-hander right here in turn number 5. Garrett Maines also overcooked the corner, locked up the tire, nearly got passed by Logan Clampett, and Salas is doing a good job of not allowing Zelensky to get away in this battle for the race lead. And you can see over pushing it there too much. Salas into the grass, and that is going to cost significant time, and Zelensky pulls now some 10 car lengths away.
And for Zelensky, you love to see all those little dots in the rearview mirror start to fade away a little bit. I'm thinking about what Logan Clampett has been thinking about. He's kind of been hounding the rear end of this 4-car group, and he's had a chance to maybe send the nose in a little bit on Garrett Maines. He got out of shape when that pass happened for the lead and had a little bit of brake lock up, but Clampett's kind of just sat there and he got the dirt there. That's not the first time that Clampett has kind of exited the rumble strip and went into the dirt, and he's kind of testing the waters right now. I'm curious if he's just testing the waters, or I wonder if he has a chance here later on in the race, if he's saving his tires up a little bit right now, if he can start to pick these guys off. But such a long race, and when you're this early, there's such a delicate balance between kind of just being patient and going out and gunning it. Look back here in this battle, just around that 10th position. David Chesar knows for a fact, I can see 2 cars in front of me right now, but 10 laps from now, you don't know where you're going to be spread out. The start of this race is when you know you see those cars in front of you and you might be able to make some passes.
And you can see that 97 machine all over the back of Woodruff there through the back half of the racetrack. Left-hander turn 13, the Bill Mitchell bend. They almost get into each other. And at the 97, long way around. And turn number 14 is going to make the move. So David Chesar up to 9th position. Woodruff, you can see the onboard with him. You talk about the different kind of wheels that drivers here are using. He's using that open wheel formula style wheel, which, you know, some drivers who drive these stock cars full-time, if you will, on the sim, is RayShock's going to go down and on the inside, so the 71 also going to pass Woodruff. But a lot of people who drive these stock cars full-time might find that strange. One thing they can't really do, Jesse, if you're driving a NASCAR Xfinity Series car here at Road America, you can't just pop off your wheel and put a formula rim on it, but that's what guys can do in the sim, right? We talk about how flexible the equipment is, and even the pros, like a Bobby Zelensky, very notorious for running a formula style wheel, even though he's driving a stock car on the service.
I always find it interesting when I see the different kind of wheels that people are using. Yeah, for me, I use a NASCAR style wheel here at home when I'm on my sim, and a lot of people do, or a lot of people use what came with their sim setup, which typically is a wheel that is maybe just a hair bit smaller than a stock car wheel. You know, maybe it's not the 15 or 14 inch wheel. You know, maybe it's 12 inch or 30, whatever it is. But yeah, when you use a formula style wheel, I've actually never really used one of those on a sim. So honestly, I think that would feel really interesting, depending on what type of steering ratio you're using. But if people can make it work, they make it work. I mean, everybody has their own style. Everybody has something that they're used to, something that they're comfortable with. At the end of the day, you're at home. You want to make yourself as comfortable as possible, because the more comfortable you feel in a race car, the better you're going to be, the more confidence you're going to have, the less nervous you're going to be, and you'll just be a lot more relaxed. And at the end of the day, in order to go fast, you got to be smooth. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Let's look at the gap that Bobby Zelensky has over the rest of those top 4. But again, who you will not see is the car in 5th position. That is still Aaron Ramon, 15 plus seconds back from these leaders last time by. Again, to the question of, are these pro drivers on the sim really that good? Yes, they are, and it's setting up for a really interesting battle, right? We've talked a little bit about how the prize pool works for this evening's event. $5,000 total going to go out unless something really bad happens to somebody in this top 4. Zelensky, Salas, Maines, and Clampett are going to be fighting for either $4,000 for the race win, the $500 prize for second, $250 to third, and $150 to 4th place. That does mean, though, that a non-pro driver will leave tonight with a check, and right now Aaron Ramon is winning that battle, although Cody Smith last time by made the pass. So Smith now, the highest running non-pro driver, would walk away with $100 if he can hang on to the number 5 position.
And let's just put an emphasis right now on how important it is to have the leader in front of you on that final lap.
Yeah.
Evan, you said $3,500 difference between first place and second place.
Major.
That's a big deal.
major difference. So we've seen this before in plenty of Omega Cup Series events, sponsored by EPM Equity Prime Mortgage. We've seen a lot of this where, yeah, when you're in first, just because you're P1, especially on the last lap, doesn't mean, oh, all is well, I'm P1, I'm going to win. We've seen it time and time again. Actually, at the Spring Bowl, where being P1 just didn't matter going into the final lap. So it's almost better to be P2 or even P3, especially if you have somebody right there on your sides, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know what people are going to do or what risk they're going to take to try to take that position.
Listen, all I'm saying is I would put a bumper to my friend Devin if the what was at stake was who was paying for dinner, let alone $3,500 a difference, right?
No kidding. And when we see just how good some of these pro drivers are doing and the gap that they've already put on the rest of the field, mind you, it's about 22, 23 seconds. If you guys think it's not that big of a deal, I mean, Jesse's already talked about it. You can find out for yourself, right? You need to sign on up for ERA and find out for yourself if you can keep up with these guys on a road course. And maybe just next summer you can show everyone that you can. Or you might show everyone, yeah, these are for pros.
You can show everybody that you can, but you don't even have to wait till next summer. I mean, our next event that we're going to have is actually going to be this September, and we'll be going back to the oval track. So if you think, hey, you know what, hey, road courses aren't for you, if you're not that good at road courses, if you really think you're not going to stand a chance, well, guess what? We'll be going back to the ovals in September, and it's going to get pretty rowdy. So if you think you can drive on the oval track, if you think, hey, it's all it is just turning left and you can beat these guys, you can beat any of these pro guys, or you can beat any of the guys who aren't pros, because just because these guys are pros does not mean that they're going to win the race. We've seen it in multiple events where people who are non-pros beat out the pros. Things can happen. People spin, people wreck, people make mistakes. But sometimes you're just faster than the pros. You might just be that good.
And I will say that there's a reason why I'm up here, Devin, alongside you, because I'm not willing to find out how many dozens of seconds per lap slower I am than guys like Vicente Salas, who again started this race in first position, but has settled into second after Bobby Zelensky made the move on him. That is Zelensky up the road as they come back down through Canada Corner. Salas has made up for a little bit of the time that he lost, but again, really the only reason that gap exists is because he went off track back on lap number 4 through turn number 6, got the right side tires into the grass, and he just had to get so much out of the throttle to be able to do so. That makes this racetrack very different than what we saw at COTA, right? COTA enforces those track limits with penalties. Even if you miss the corner, go over the curbs, it's still all paved. So you might get a slowdown penalty. Most instances you'll simply get an incident point hit, which if that's being enforced, that could add up over the course of the night. The way that this track, Jesse, polices itself is very different than COTA. As we jump back on board here with Jason Rajok in the battle for 9th, 8th, and 7th. He's looking up the road and is trying to get around right now in a side-by-side fight with David Shazar on the inside, and the 97 gets the advantage. Here, there aren't paved runoffs. It's either grass or gravel, and neither of those are good for you. So do you almost have to treat it like a street circuit, right? I mean, a street circuit, the point is, if you miss a corner, you're into the wall. Here you miss a corner, you're in the grass, right? You're losing a ton of time. You don't have a margin for error at a racetrack like this than, say, we did at COTA last summer. Oh, and a spin!
Oh,
Cesar
wow.
misses it. He's not the only one, though. Compton also around. So 2 spins into turn number 1. And after a quiet start, 2 drivers off track.
We're going to see this starting to happen here about now. There's going to be drivers making mistakes because now that these drivers, their tires are falling off, you got to remember, a lot of people are really amped up going into this event. Everybody wants to be the fastest. Everyone wants to be the best. Everyone wants to go home. Actually, they're all at home right now. They want to stay home with some money, and they probably burnt up their stuff early if they didn't really understand how long this race is going to be. So we're going to start seeing mistakes happen. And like you said, yes, you're basically on paved road, and then all of a sudden it's grass or dirt, and that grass or dirt is not very forgiving. I mean, it doesn't really tear up these race cars on the sim that bad, from at least what I know. But once you get on there, you have absolutely no grip. That grass is like basically driving on ice. You might as well just be on ice. So you really have to keep it on the paved surface. And I know it looks like there is space on the track, but when you're driving on there really isn't that much space. You can't even really go 3 wide there safely. I mean, if you tried, somebody's going to get the wrong part of the stick. So it's difficult to drive at this track. Once again, like I mentioned, you'll have a lot of corners where you're carrying a lot of speed into them, but you really have to slow down a lot to be able to get through them. It's just not easy at all, but it's really nice kind of watching these different battles happen all throughout the field. The battles aren't just happening from 1st through 4th or 1st through 5th. There's battles at 10th. There's battles at 15th. You see someone locking up their tires going in. You're going to see that happen a lot. There's so much happening all through the track.
And did you guys see when that car spun around how heavily the front brake rotors were glowing? And this is iRacing. The way that looked is similar to what you might see in real life. And this here is a fixed setup. It's a custom setup, but everyone's running the same thing underneath these cars. One of the few things that you can change is the braking bias. And I mean, I'd have to assume that he had some front braking bias in there, man, because those rotors were about to burst into flames. And Jesse, to your point about how long this race actually is, coming around this time by for everyone, we will still have 125 miles to go.
Yeah. It's a lot of mileage to go, especially on a road course like this where you're doing a lot of heavy braking. And I'm not sure if brakes explode on iRacing. I've never seen them, but that could happen in real life. But yeah, you can adjust your brake bias, and that's something that some of these drivers do who know what they're doing with it. When I come to the road courses on iRacing, what I typically like to do is I dial the brake bias back. So for the viewers at home who are wondering, what the heck is Jesse talking about? What are these commentators talking about brake bias and this and that? You know, isn't it like a street car? Like, what do you mean? You just hit the brakes, right? No, it's a lot different. Brake bias is where you're able to dial in more front brake or dial in more rear brake. And the reason why you want to do that is maybe you're trying to go into the corners, maybe you're trying to get the vehicle to rotate a little bit more, especially when you're braking going in. So you want to dial in a little bit more rear brake to, in a way, not completely lock up the rears, but get the vehicle just to rotate a little bit more, because the rear brakes are actually clamping down a lot more than what they were if you dialed in front brake. When you dial in a lot of front brake, the vehicle will, transfer that weight up forward a lot pretty quick. But the thing is, if you have too much front brake, you'll lock up those fronts and you'll just go sliding and pushing through the corner. So there's ways you can get in trouble. Usually I'll dial the rear brake back maybe about 1 to 1.5%, but then I have to be real careful because that's enough to start locking up those rears and setting myself spinning like the driver we saw right there in the dirt, in the grass.
There's been a couple of drivers off track as of late. I know that the 80 machine we saw spinning a little bit earlier was back into the fence again. So several drivers with some problems here. These tight racetrack restrictions certainly butting a couple of drivers. We are quarter distance, though, this time by. And after Vicente Salas led the opening two, it has been Bobby Zelensky since then. So we'll take a moment to step aside, but we'll keep things side by side so you don't miss a moment of the action. Zelensky leads. You're watching the Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Summerbowl from Road America on Podium Esports.
Do you struggle finding someone to race with, someone to compete with, or flat out someone just to give the Gap sauce? Well, you should check out the Gapum app. Gapum is the only app that will allow you to race people locally, share videos, and attend events. And after you race, you can actually take your racing video and post it in the Gapum Postum section so the whole world can see. And even if you're not a racer, you can always head to our Gapum app crew mode section where you and some friends can continue to meet up, go to car meets, go to car events, car shows, anything that has nothing to do with going to the racetrack. Gapum is a one-stop shop for the car world. Looks like I just got a match on the Gapum app. Time to serve someone some Gapple beans. Ready, set, Gapple.
And back live from iRacing's virtual Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, as the Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Summerbowl rolls on. Past quarter distance so far, it is eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver Bobby Zelensky still in the lead. I want to bring you back into the Podium Esports broadcast booth, though, alongside myself, Evan Pizocco, joined by Jesse Wuji, David Henry, and our producer downstairs, Ryan Bauer. And we've been watching a lot of drivers work their way through the field, and we've talked a lot about how this top four, Jesse, have been able to pull away, but some of the most exciting stuff right here in the midfield, where those intervals are a lot closer, and somebody who has had quite a night tonight so far, Kyle Wisner. He's dropped a couple of positions, picked them back up, and has been engaged in a lot of fights so far this afternoon, and I know that you've got quite a connection to the driver of the 42.
Yeah, Kyle Wisner, he's doing a great job here. He's picked up some spots. He's over there battling with his VR on. He actually helps driver coach me a little bit. We do some sim stuff together on the sim. He helps me out a lot on the oval stuff, and it's cool to see him here. But yeah, interesting story on Kyle. So me getting into racing, period, like me even, at the beginning of my whole, stock car racing journey, NASCAR journey, all that stuff, he was actually the one who pretty much was a catalyst for that. I was looking to get into racing. I wasn't sure what kind of series I wanted to get into. Wasn't sure if it's going to be sports car or, open wheel or whatever. And then I actually ran into Kyle at a car show. And I was talking to him about some different things, letting him know about my interest in cars and racing and all that stuff. I didn't know what he did. But we split ways, and then later on that same day, I went to go use a porta potty, and he happened to be in the one that I was trying to get into, and I was sitting there waiting in line. He pops out of it. I'm like, oh, hey, what's up? I saw you earlier. And his first words were, would you be interested in getting into stock car racing? And I was like, wait, what? Like NASCAR style stuff? And he's like, yeah, like maybe a late model at first, but yeah. I was like, sure. And then from there, things kicked off. Next thing you know, he invited me to do a test with a late model team out in Irwindale, California. That test went well. And then from there, that kind of was really the launch of me getting into racing and working my way up the series. But, I love to tell people that, hey, I got into NASCAR because I met somebody outside of a porta potty.
Funny how things work out, right?
Yeah, it worked out very interestingly. But, really, I think it's really more of a story of, if you have a goal, you have a dream in life, you're going after different things. You really, once you start putting your mind towards it, you start putting focus energy towards it every single day. What typically happens is, the universe starts putting people and things, along the way for you to meet, right? Doors start opening. It's just like, let's say you just bought a Chevy Camaro and all of a sudden all you see now are Chevy vehicles out there. It's kind of the same thing. Like because your mind is on it, you start seeing these things now that were always there, but you just never paid attention to. And for me putting energy in towards wanting to get into racing, all of a sudden I started meeting people that were going to help me get to what I wanted to go to, because I had an authentic passion. It wasn't something that was just this made up little dream that I was like, hey, let me try this because it's cool. I really, really wanted to do it. So when you put that focus energy towards it, it's very interesting what doors start coming into your life.
And as you watch Rajak here track down Luis Vega, you spend a lot of time on the sim. A lot of these guys do, and the enormous amount of time that the pros do up front, they spend on the sim. For you, and you talk about how you use the sim to prepare for some of the real life stuff, but I'm always curious about with the real world drivers, when you hop into the sim, what kind of things are you kind of working on, or are you trying to focus on practice-wise? Because at the end of the day, a sim is never going to match reality. You talk about the feel of a race car. I mean, the sensors are so important, but there's still aspects that you can learn. So when you hop onto the sim to kind of help prepare yourself for the real world action, what kind of attributes are you kind of working on in sim to better yourself, or at least prepare yourself for some real world racing?
For me, I do my best to try to make it feel as realistic as possible, right? Let's just take it to the oval tracks, right? I know a lot of people jump on iRacing and then they throw in like a 14-to-1 or 16-to-1 steering ratio, steering box, and they say, oh yeah, it's better because of this, it helps you like whatever it is. And I never do that. I try to practice like it's real life. In real life, we have a 10-to-1 steering box, and I tell people I put a 10-to-1 steering box in. When I'm running on iRacing and they think I'm crazy, I'm like, that's what we do in real life. This whole driving a school bus type steering ratio, that's not That's not legit. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's not legit. Some people do that, but not a lot. A lot of people, they run a tighter steering box. We're not turning the wheel that much. You shouldn't have to turn the wheel that much. Really, when you're going in the corner, it really shouldn't be much wheel turning, but also it's more difficult to drive for sure. So I try to practice those things. You know, my brake pressures, I try to adjust my pedals on my sim so that I have to apply a lot of brake pressure. If I'm feeling a little bit sore in my left quadricep, you know, from running a road course on the sim after doing a sim session, then that means that I got enough brake pressure on there. So I'm doing things like that. And I'm also just practicing realistic things. There's ways to kind of game things on here where you're doing things that you might not be able to do that in real life. So I try not to do those things, because that's practicing bad habits. And if you practice those bad habits, you'll start eventually doing those bad habits, which won't translate to real life. So if you practice like it's real life, you won't necessarily be the fastest one on the sim, but you'll be pretty quick, you'll be pretty decent, you'll be able to go out there and race, and you'll be doing all the right things to practice the right muscle memory so that when you get to the real track in real life, you feel like you've done it before.
And
I think that really speaks. Well, I just want to say, I think that really speaks to, you know, how many different directions you can go if you're interested in getting into iRacing, right? You can go and you can run Cadillacs at Talladega if you want, or you can drive a NASCAR next-gen stock car at Road America with a $5,000 purse on the line, right? You can do so much when you get involved here on the service, Devin, you know, for drivers who want to do it more as a casual hobby versus a lot of names we've talked about, the Zelenskys, the Salises, the Mainses, and Clampetts of the world who take it much more seriously.
And for those casual guys, Jesse alluding to the steering ratio aspect of what you guys do, that's one of the few things that you can change on a fixed setup that a lot of people run on iRacing. Can you kind of explain to the audience what that steering ratio is and how it affects the car and how you drive it?
Yeah, so for steering ratios, what that does is really affects, you know, when you turn the wheel, how much you have to actually turn the wheel for the vehicle to actually turn. So the higher the steering ratio is, that means you'll have to use more wheel for the vehicle to turn, and it'll feel more like a street car. So for example, let's look at like a old school 1970s or 80s Cadillac, right? You know, those things are, you know, I mean, you got to use a lot of wheel to get that thing to turn. It almost feels like a school bus in a way, right? Whereas you look at maybe a Corvette, you know, maybe a C8 Corvette, the steering ratio is a lot smaller, so you don't have to use as much wheel for the vehicle to turn. So that's really kind of how you can compare it to what people feel on the streets. I like a tighter steering ratio. I like the smaller number. When I'm on a road course, I actually do the 8-to-1. When I'm on the ovals, if I'm on a short track, I do 8-to-1. If I'm on an intermediate track, which is a 1.5 miles, I do a 10-to-1. If I'm on a super speedway, I'll typically do a 12-to-1. Typically don't go higher than that. I just don't like having to use a lot of wheel to turn it. It's just not what we do.
And of course, all the tracks, the cars on the service, laser scanned to 1/4-inch accuracy. And again, it's not a substitute for being behind the wheel of a real-life race car, but we've seen plenty of examples of this on the sim to reality ladder, where people get involved in this at a young age, and they can transition that into an opportunity to maybe get into a stock car a little bit in their higher teen years and know what they're doing before getting into it and get a little bit of a head start. You saw a couple of the drivers getting out of the way there for your top four. Barrios was one of them. The other may have been Castro Alves. They were simply yielding to the race leaders, and there has been a bit of a shakeup in the order in which they run. It's still Zelensky, Salas, Maines, 1, 2, 3. The driver who you don't see right now is Logan Clampett. Well, Clampett had a big issue on lap number 12 of this race. He lost 6+ seconds on that lap alone after he got loose trying to pass a lapped car down in turn number 6, I believe it was. You can see some of the damage reflected on the 97. It did not cost him a position on the racetrack, but we referenced earlier, with the big money on the line, you want the race leader to be in your sights. well, and you also want the cars you're chasing to be within, eye range of yourself and clamp it so forth. But he is now 14 seconds behind as 21 is off and into the fence, I think, in Canada corner for Ryan Barrios with a bit of a mistake there. But just wanted to mention that mistake with Clamp It, trying to clear that lap traffic, has cost him significant time that has essentially taken him out of the race for those top three.
Oh, it is. That's tough, and that's something I figured would start happening too. I mean, if you look at it, a lot of people are, some people are going into the pits to fix damage. Some people are spinning off track. Some people, going in, whatever it is. Some people are making mistakes, and then all of a sudden you're starting to see a mixture of traffic all the way around the track, right? It's not just everybody in one line. Now there's just a mixture of speeds out there, which can cause some issues. You might be a faster driver, and you're coming in against somebody who might have some damage, or somebody who's just maybe just not as fast or not putting the same lap times down as you are, and all of a sudden you run into them. Whose fault is it? Is it the lap traffic's fault, or is it the faster driver's fault? A lot of people will say, oh, lap traffic needs to get out of the way. Well, the faster driver should be the better driver, who should be the one who can get around any lap traffic. It's a race. Every single person who's on the track right now paid all the same money to be here, right? So everybody deserves the same amount of respect on the track as possible. So as tough as it is to try to get around lap traffic and everyone thinks they should just get out of the way, as the driver coming to pass that person, you got to be able to and ready to get around that lap traffic however necessary you got to do it.
And we've seen a lot of drivers find some difficulty in the past few laps now, starting to think, okay, this is where the rear tires are starting to heat up and fall off, and guys are having issues just keeping it on the track. And you look at the lap time specifically, the guys like Salas and Maines, their last laps are about a full second now off of their best laps. You go back around that 5th position with Cody Smith, he's almost 2 seconds off his fastest lap. Luis Vega, he's 2 seconds off of his fastest lap. But Bobby Zalenski in the lead right now, guys. Get this, 2 laps ago, he ran the fastest lap of the race at the end of lap 14. I don't know how, but that is remarkable with guys now running 2:13, 2:14, 2:15. He runs the fastest lap of the race this late in this first run.
I think that's his X factor, and it's even more impressive because when we were talking with Vicente Salas a little bit earlier in the broadcast, he said tires are going to be tricky because they peak pretty soon, right? And you kind of got to manage them over the course of the run. So for Bobby Zalenski to still be in that lowest bracket is super impressive, right? I mean, you got the top 3 last time put down 2-minute, 12-second lap times. The lap before that, Zalenski was second quicker, I should say, than Salas was, and that's how all of a sudden he's cracked this thing wide open. You might not be able to tell it, but these are tricky moments for Bobby Zalenski. There's lap traffic and Fairstead Bachman up the road. The number 86 car going to yield to the left-hand side. He will let your race leader go on through. He also had to get around that 42 Kyle Wisner and other drivers. So anytime your race leaders are trying to work through somebody, that is always a point of contention. But Bobby Zalenski has opened up a 5-second advantage over the next closest car, and really some of the best battles on track back in traffic. I know Maines is only about a second off of Salas at a battle for 2nd and 3rd. Julian Ricci and Christopher Reagan in 12th and 13th, not that far apart. Same with Fairstead Bachman and David Chazar, 16th and 17th. So you can pick out battles here and there. And here's the onboard perspective from Julian Ricci as he tries to get up there, Jesse, but a little bit too wide that time. Turn 14, left side tires in the grass, and it opens up the door for Reagan to pull away a little bit.
There are so many parts of this track where you can pass. That's a cool thing about it. It's not like, there's other road courses out there, other tracks where it's very difficult to pass. Whereas here, there's just so many different corners where you can really dive underneath someone. And if you can hang on to it, he almost got out of shape under there. If you can hang on to it, you can make the pass. Sometimes you can bully people out of the corner because of all these, high speeds and some very slow corners. You can bully people. You can almost treat it like a short track in a way where you can give them a little shove, give them a little bump, get underneath them, door them, whatever it is. Even though people probably won't like that, there's different ways to get around people on this track here at Road America.
And Jesse, you know this in the real world, and it's the same in the sim world. One of the most underrated aspects of any race car driver is the adaptability. We talked about earlier before the race started, just the fact how much these cars are going to change and evolve throughout the course of a run, whether it be tire wear, the car getting lighter because of fuel load, the track getting hotter, racing in different circumstances. The ability to adapt to the circumstances in which the car puts you in over the course of a long race like this that's 14 corners and 4 miles long, that's where the best shine the brightest, is when you're able to have that adaptability and pick up the car. And you see, that was just such a small margin of error hitting it into the grass, and that's how easy it is to make everything go awry.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And that can happen that quick. And he was having a decent run there, but ended up just barely losing and getting a little bit of damage. But interesting thing about these tracks, even though there are some pretty high speeds that they're going here, and aero does, play into effect, in some different ways. You can find some cars on track that can get some decent damage and still go out there and run well. It can still happen. But man, that's tough to watch right there. It happens. But these drivers are all fighting out there. There's a lot of different things that are getting them. I mean, the tires are falling off. They have less fuel. Maybe the cars are getting a little bit light in the rear. Drivers even fatigue. When you're driving on a road course, even on the sim, even though you're at home and it seems like everything's all chill, you might have the AC on and all that stuff, you are still sweating. Things are still happening. Your body's still going through a lot. Your heart rate's up. You're knowing that, hey, a lot of people are watching you, competing against the best, and you start getting nervous, and sometimes you make mistakes. Even for the folks who are on that VR really, it mentally drains you, because your eyeballs, your brain is doing so much to keep up with everything happening with that VR on. Once you come off the sim, you are really, really mentally fatigued. So I think some mental fatigue right now is happening for some of these drivers. That's why you're seeing maybe some of these mistakes.
It really gets the blood pumping, right? I mean, not to say that it is the highest level of athletics out there, but I played competitive sports through high school, and even at like a state championship level, I don't think my heart ever beat as hard doing that kind of stuff as it is done like running the iRacing Daytona 500 or the iRacing Indianapolis 500, right? When you can kind of see a race coming together, and with 5 laps to go or with 10 laps to go, I've got a chance to win this. Even if there's no money on the line, I start getting, clammy, and I'm sweating and my heart's racing. And pro drivers as well will tell you the same thing. When they're racing for $300,000 in the Coke Series, for a $4,000 one-night payout in this Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Summerbowl, you feel it. And they might look calm when we check in on some of these onboard looks, but you feel it. When you're racing side by side with somebody with the elbows up, you are sweating, and I don't think that's something that is exclusive to the pro drivers. I don't think it's exclusive to the casual sim racer. I mean, Vicente is looking pretty calm right now, but I bet you he's sweating. These guys also, Jesse, you alluded to it earlier, that I'm really used to using the left foot a ton, right? Yeah, we're racing here at Road America in the Coke Series in a couple of weeks, but they don't do it on a week-by-week basis. There is also a level of stamina that is involved in sim racing, and somebody who hasn't done it and doesn't know it might scoff at that, right? Like stamina for playing a video game, right? But when you got some of these setups where the brake pedals are weighted, the gas pedals weighted, you got force feedback on the wheel, as you see Julian Ricci has had a little bit of a spin there for the driver in 13th position right now. It is mentally taxing, and in a race like this, at points, physically taxing as well.
It definitely is. I mean, this race definitely is physically taxing, that's for sure, on the sim. Any road course race I've done on the sim where I've ran 30, 40 laps, at the end of it, I am so drained. When we ran the iRacing Pro Invitational last year, we did the Circuit of Americas, we did the Chicago Street Course. I was so drained at the end of it. I didn't want to do anything else. I was done. And I literally was sweating through my shirt, and I had the AC on. I think I had it at 60-something degrees in that house. I mean, I did everything I could, even had a fan in the room, and it was just sweating, because it really is physically taxing driving these road courses, because like you mentioned, some of these wheels that the drivers have give force feedback, and they have a lot of Newton meters that they give back. These drivers aren't holding PlayStation or Xbox controllers or anything like that. They're all using steering wheels that give some of these drivers giving the same force feedback that a real vehicle would use. My steering wheel I have here for my sim, I remember the first day I got it, I remember, it said that this is, the DD2, it gives off a lot of force feedback. I was like, oh, it can't be that bad. I turned it up to its maximum and I almost hurt myself, and I was like, never again. I turned it back down. I was like, wow, this thing is absolutely strong. So yeah, these sims, definitely give you a workout, that's for sure.
And Jesse, you might be able to attest to this, or maybe I'm just stupid. It could be either one of the two. But the first time that I ran a long road course race, like halfway through, I'm going, my left shin and knee are killing me right now, because unless you know how to properly do that, the way that you have to move your leg around, the way that you're distributing the brake amount, and the way that sometimes you're trying to hold up your brake pedal foot, right? Because you don't want to be on the brakes, but it's got to be there because in an instant you might need it. So, I mean, that's a very strange, physically tasking aspect of any kind of racing, whether you're just sitting there in an office chair, right? And then the way that this is just mentally exhausting, I think once we get a little bit deeper into this race, we've probably already seen it, how mentally exhausting it is to even just stare at a screen this long and be this dialed in and focused is absolutely exhausting. And I think we saw it with Zelensky just sitting in a dark room. Man, my eyes would be killing me by this point if I was in a dark room. And hey, we're coming in for pit stops, guys.
Oh, he's coming in hot. Ooh. Oh, man, is he gonna hold on to it? I don't know. He did, but he might get caught up for speeding. We'll find out. That's how aggressive these folks are doing coming into the pits. And the thing about coming into these pits is you're going uphill into the pits, so you think you got to carry a lot of speed, but then all of a sudden it flattens out. You're like, uh-oh, that's a little bit too much.
And the driver you saw on the wall was Vicente Salas. Richard Woodruff was already headed to pit road at a much slower rate than those two. And Vicente tried to pass him, made contact with Woodruff and the outside wall. Maines also kind of fought his way through the two car. And now we'll see as all four of your Coke Series drivers are on pit road at the same Zelensky going to go for a 4-tire stop. He spends 16.5 seconds in the stall. It's actually a relatively slow pit stop for him, but because he's the first off of the pit lane and first to get back onto the throttle, Zelensky's race lead will grow to 7.1 seconds. That is the lead over Salas, Maines, and company. No surprise at all that these pit stops are happening at the halfway point, because it's going to make strategy a nice pretty bow. Everyone's going to come in, get 4 tires and fuel, and then they should be set for the second half.
So much action. So much action happening on the pit road, and just watching these drivers go in there fighting for it. So many things can happen. That's what he said. Even though those Coke Series drivers were up ahead, fighting for the lead, and they were way ahead of everybody, there's so many opportunities for other things to happen that could potentially mess up their race, whether it's them or other people. And we saw that firsthand.
And how about this, man? Garrett Maines is absolutely pestering Vicente Salas right now. And the fact that these two are still this close as Maines kind of sends it in there. I mean, we're about 80 miles in, a little over 80 to go still, and these guys are this close on the track still is remarkable.
Their best lap times, 1/10 of a second apart between Salas and Maines, 2/10 of a second apart between Salas and Zelensky. And when you think that's over the course of a 4-mile lap with 14 corners in which you can lose time, make up time in, I mean, 1/10 of a second on an oval, sure. But 1/10 of a second a lap on a road course this big, where there are so many different ways to lose time, to gain time, goes to show you how even these drivers are. And of course, you mentioned the fixed setup as well, I think being a big factor in all of that the difference is coming down to 110% the driver. Nobody has a setup advantage, a car advantage from one car to the next. It all dwindles down to how these drivers opt to to attack this racetrack. Jason Rejak and Cody Smith onto the pit lane this time through. That will leave, I believe, only David Barnes in the number 12 position yet to come down pit road. Everybody else has done so, and the battle for second is still some of the best stuff on the racetrack. So as we have crossed the halfway point in tonight's race, let's take a look top to bottom at your iRacing midway race break, brought to you by iRacing. iRacing is the world's premier online racing game that puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in Australian Supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. As we work lap number 22, Bobby Zalenski has defended the race lead. He has led the last 19 laps consecutively and has a 7.2 second lead over pole sitter and current second place runner Vicente Salas. Garrett Maines in the number 3 spot, still trying to get around Salas, unable to do so, with a significant advantage over Logan Clampett, who had an off track earlier in this race that took himself out of that quartet battle that is now a 3-way fight for the race win. Aaron Ramon behind both of them in the number 5 position, exactly where he started. So is Luis Vega. Started this race in position number 6 and runs in P6 at the moment. But then you start to talk about your big movers. We've talked about Jason Rejak a lot tonight, just completing pit service. That last lap started in 18th and is tied for the most positions gained at plus 11. Here's your on-board look with the Chase Elliott fan. And listen, if you're a fan of the 9 car, you got to be a fan of these road course races. Chase Elliott, one of the best at it, currently in the NASCAR Cup Series, and Rejak good up to P7. He's ahead of Cody Smith, who is an impressive plus 8 in his own right to get to the number 8 position, along with Weisner and Cusack inside of the top 10. But contact, I hear, in the battle for second, and it sounds like Vicente Salas got into Maines. There it is on the replay. Now that was the first bit. Here's the second bit that finished it.
Wow. We all knew it could happen with this battle being so tight. And look how hard it is to get out of that dirt, get out of the sand, get out of the grass.
It all started in Canada Corner when Vicente Salas made a mistake. He got loose. It opened up the door for Garrett Maines, and Garrett Maines moved to 13 out of the way for second. Clearly, Vicente took exception to that, took an aggressive entry to the inside in 14 to counter, and just lost that race car, spun both of those cars off track, and that now means that major issues for Salas, Maines, and Clampett have taken those 3 out of the battle against Zalenski. And all of a sudden, Jesse, what you mentioned earlier, to finish first, you first must finish, and Zalenski has been clean. His 3 Coke Series counterparts can't say the same, and maybe that has been the difference through the first half.
Yeah, that is for sure. And that's what it is. In order to finish first, you must first finish. You got to stay consistent. You can't make any mistakes. And you got to keep people off you, and you got to stay off of other people. But they were battling. I mean, everybody wants to win this race, and they're willing to do whatever is necessary. There's some things that you can get away with. At the end of the day, racing in NASCAR, racing these stock cars, it is a contact sport. It's not like the open wheel stuff where if you touch, all of a sudden your race is completely over. In these cars, you can touch, you can rub, you can bump, you can do all those different things. You can truly fight it out and duke it out on the track, and that's what we were seeing. But sometimes it's just a little too much, and next thing you know, you find yourself and maybe even the other driver or even more drivers off the track.
And I guess we should finish up that iRacing midway race break after drama broke things up in the middle. I talked about the top 10. Another driver lap down is Richard Woodruff at 11th position. Also lap down David Barnes in 12th. A couple of drivers -2. That includes Thomas Mrazek 13th, Julian Ricci 14th, and Ferguson Bachman in the number 15 spot. Bruno Castro-Alves is 5 laps down in 16th. Christopher Reagan and Ryan Barrios are 7 laps. They're both scored 17th and 18th with David Chazar, Nicholas Compton, and Thomas Edwards already back and in the garage as your race leaders are working lap number 24. That's looked at the bottom at your iRacing midway race break with over 170,000 drivers on the service and more than 90 laser scanned cars and tracks to choose from. iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get on track today and start your sim racing career by visiting iRacing.com for more information. So all of a sudden, this race looks very different, Devin, than what it did a little bit ago, and there's still plenty to fight for, right? Garrett Maines is only 3 seconds and change back from Salas in a battle for second, but again, mistakes from Salas, Maines, Clampett. Not to say that, Bobby Zelensky wouldn't have had it outright anyways, right? He hounded Dallas for those opening laps that made it past, but all 3 of those other drivers were sticking with them, and those major off tracks is what has taken them out of the battle for the moment.
And let's put into perspective that battle for second. That is the difference between earning $500 tonight and earning $250 tonight. That's the gap from second to third. So that is a very meaningful battle, and Maines has himself a bit of a hole to dig out of, but this also brings Logan Clampett back into it. I mean, he was double-digit seconds behind that battle for second. 7 seconds still isn't great. He is behind Garrett Maines, but now at least you still have those opportunities. We were talking about, hey, at least one non-pro will get one of those top 5 payouts tonight. It just goes to show you how easy it is. If one of these pros does have a problem, someone else might be able to jump and capitalize. Aaron Ramon, we haven't talked about him much today, but he has moved his way into the 5th position. He actually just had an issue in one corner, got stuck into the sand trap, but he still has himself about 22 seconds in front of Luis Vega, and he is about 1.5 minutes behind Logan Clampett. But for Ramon, he has himself in a position to earn money tonight, and if possible, if something does happen to one of those runners up front, he could add a little bit more to that payday if he just stays consistent.
He should not have to make an additional trip down to the pit lane. We saw everybody come in at the midway point, get their service. That should have everybody set up to the end of this race, maybe with the exception of David Barnes. I mentioned Barnes had yet to come down to the pit lane on that cycle. He was on pit road earlier in this race with a little bit of damage and likely going to need a pit before it's done, as we go on board with Cody Smith, one of the drivers who is well and into the green tonight. He has passed 7 cars to get to where he is, I should say, right now in the number 9 position. You are on board with him, and a good look at his VR goggles at work as he's trying to chase down that 42, Jesse, Kyle Wisner.
He looks so chill. I mean, he's just relaxing, just like, yeah, I'm just riding through one-handed, no big deal. I'm really good. I mean, he's doing awesome. But yeah, trying to chase down Kyle Wisner. Kyle in the 42 machine over there, just wheeling this thing, and we'll see what happens. He's getting to the bumper, and you see that accordion effect. That's what happens here at the road courses. You might have a little bit of gap on someone, but then when you go in the corner, if someone outbreaks you, or if someone doesn't, just gets to the corner just a little bit better, all of a sudden you have that accordion effect. And sometimes you go back, sometimes you go forward. And it looks like he's really trying to make a move on Kyle, but we'll see what happens in this battle. Who's going to outbreak each other going into this corner? There's a lot of things that can happen. This is a very, very high-speed part of the track. You're going 160, 170 miles per hour through this area. Then there's hard braking going into this corner. Downshift, get down to first gear, make that corner turn, hit the apex, get back on the gas, trying not to light them up going through here. Then you got to get brake because it's going to get light right here. You get light, turn it in, get on the throttle again, feed it, upshift, keep going, and all of a sudden you're going to get off the gas just a little bit, turn it in, but you're going to want to feed the throttle real quick right now, and upshift, and you're going, but you're going to go into another hard braking corner right now, on the brakes, downshift, don't lock it up, turn it in, and don't get hit while doing so.
Okay, so real quick, while we were looking there, you saw that he has the paddles on the back for the gear shifters. Can we get back to the onboard camera with Cody Smith, who I think just had an issue, or actually he's on pit road right now, but okay, I guess we don't need an onboard then if he's on pit road, but he was doing all that one-handed.
Yeah. Well, so that's the thing. So when we talked about earlier about trying to treat this like real life, right? There are some people who have the paddle shifts. And yes, when you're on a road course, it's a lot easier to have the paddle shifters. But guess what? In real life, that's a beautiful paint scheme right there by Ryan Barrios. You know what? I'm going to get back to that point. Let's go to Ryan real quick in the 21 car. So he has that, what people like to call it, that Army Black Knight paint scheme, right? And the cool thing about Ryan is he's actually a Service Academy graduate. He's currently a second lieutenant in the United States Army. He graduated from West Point in 2021. He's stationed currently in Fort Drum. So he's one of our military personnel who's serving this country, he's making sacrifices of his time, his energy, everything. He's making sacrifices so that we can have the freedoms that we have in this country. And you know what? Every once in a while, you have a little bit of free time. And looks like he's not on duty tonight. He has a little bit of free time, and now he's competing in our Omega Cup Series event. And it's really cool to see not only veterans, but also active duty personnel competing in these events. We've had people from the Air Force, Army, Navy, all different types of folks compete in these events. And it's really cool to see our service members who are serving this country jump in these events and actually compete and show that, hey, they can wheel these cars as well.
Love seeing Ryan on track as well, and eternally grateful for your Jesse and everybody else's service to our country in our armed forces. Of course, it's a big weekend coming up with the Memorial Day on the other side, and of course in the NASCAR world as well with the Coca-Cola 600 this week. So many different activations in Charlotte this week, hoping to raise money and awareness and to support those who fight and protect our freedom. So I think that's an awesome connection, and happy to see Ryan competing here tonight and fighting this one out in the Black Knights paint scheme, the number 21 Chevrolet, and 17th at the moment. Just checking it back in on the duo in second. Somebody is way off track behind them. That was Bruno Castro Alves, who was, well, if he went that wide at most road courses, he'd be in the parking lot. But I guess he found a good runoff there. Bruno's got a little bit of front end damage. He has struggled so far in that car tonight, but is toughing this one out and got out of the way of the battle for second, which again is not done. I mean, they got into each other. You have to wonder, maybe there's a little bit of animosity, right? Maines made the pass. Vicente went to pass him back, took him out. All I'm saying is, and a spinner in front. Look out. It's Bachman into the outside wall. We just cannot avoid the chaos tonight. Everywhere we look, the DeWalt Ford gets back on track, but Bachman took a shot.
Oh my goodness. That's the craziness that happens on this track. Even though it's a big track, you would think 4 miles, how can anyone really get near everybody? Everybody should spread out and it should just be, just kind of fall in line and just run. No, there's a lot of craziness going on track. There's people who have damaged cars that are slower, cars that are faster, cars with newer tires, cars with older tires, cars who burn down their tires, all these different things. And even when you go off track, your tires get dirty, so you can't even run a fast lap at first. Your psyche gets all screwed up. So many different things happen, and now we're just seeing the carnage happen, which is very interesting to watch this happen on the road course. Honestly, I didn't expect it to get this wild, and it really is. And this race, it's just not over. We have 14 laps to go, and these drivers are really, really, really going to continue to duke it out. I am very interested to see how this thing plays out.
Right now, we have 3 different battles for position within 2 seconds of one another. You have Trent Cusack trying to hold off Richard Woodruff. That's just about an 0.8 of a second gap. Then you got David Barnes trying to hold back Thomas Merzick, and that's only a 2-second battle right there. And then you saw those two, the 2 pros, they're within about 0.6 of one another. So there's a couple battles for position on track as you looked on board with Woodruff, one of the guys with the formula type of steering wheel. And I really got to wonder, maybe if he even is a stock car person, I wonder if that wheel does help, just because it feels like it's more of a road course wheel, but heck, I don't know.
I think it would just feel funky. I don't know, but maybe because I'm used to driving, the real life cars, but that Formula wheel would feel great with a Formula car. And I've driven a Formula car in real life before. I actually was in Bahrain for an event a few years ago, and I got to drive an F3 car there at that Bahraini circuit, the F1 circuit over there, and it was really, really fun. And that was probably one of my first experiences driving an open wheel car, especially with that type of steering wheel. But it's definitely interesting. It's definitely different than your normal, circle style wheel. But to have it on iRacing and drive these big, heavy stock cars, that's why I think it would feel weird. Now, if you were driving, let's say, the C8R, race car on here, then maybe it might feel all right. And maybe that's what he does. On iRacing, driving stock cars isn't the only thing you can do. You can drive GT cars, you can drive prototypes, you can drive muscle cars, or some of the muscle car, sports car type stuff. You can drive all different levels of stuff, Formula cars, you name it. So there's all different kind of things you can drive. It's not just stock car racing. So when you see those interesting wheels, maybe people are just driving other vehicles on here, and that's what they prefer.
I think it's also pretty interesting as you keep watching this battle for second. I'll tell you what, Garrett Means is getting there, so I'm really curious to see what the 31 car does, but against the Salas. But funny enough that you mentioned the Bahrain International Circuit, because I feel like it's actually a very similar racetrack to here at Road America, right? It's not a ton of elevation changes. Somewhat ironic I say that as we go up this large hill, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like the elevation changes here at Road America aren't necessarily in the corners, right? You get a little bit of a downhill slope here into 1, you get a downhill slope from 1 to 2, but unlike a place like a Sonoma or a Watkins Glen, a lot of those elevation changes at those racetracks are part of the corners. Here it's more so to get from one turn to the other, and Bahrain, much like here at Road America, has got a lot of very long straightaways. The complex from 3 to 4, the long straightaway, in the middle of the racetrack, 10 to 11, and then I think the back half, 13 to 14 or 15. Very similar, right? You got some rhythm sections, you got high speed areas like this, and stock cars don't have DRS, but certainly the draft is a factor on these straights, and these two gonna have to work around traffic. Nice piece of driving there by Richard Woodruff to get out of the way, and now Garrett Maines is within striking distance of Vicente Salas. Not only is there the potential drama of the contact between them earlier, but don't forget the payout difference between second and third is $250. That is what is on the line right here, right now, as Maines gets to the bumper as they head through the carousel part of the racetrack through the right-hand area from 9 to 10.
These battles are so cool to watch. It's just crazy. Like we talked about earlier, for these drivers to really just stay hand in hand like this, all throughout the race. I mean, this is not easy at all. This is a very big track, a lot of different corners, a lot of different areas where you can make just a small, minor mistake, which will set you back half a second here, half a second there. But for them to really stick on each other this entire time, like there's a rope, tied to each other, I mean, that is some skill right there. These drivers are just so precise with every single thing they do here on the sim. I mean, that's why they're as good as they are. That's why they're racing here in the Omega Cup Series event. It's just, you have to be able to show that you have skills here on the sim. But the skills range, right? There's people who are ridiculously precise. There's people who might not be as precise, but are still really good drivers. You see a lot of different skills, but that's the cool thing. Anybody has a shot. Anybody has a shot to really make the main event, and really anybody has a shot to win. It just depends on, how much effort you're willing to put in prior to get trained up for the event. It's not like we have these events every single day. We have these Omega Cup Series events really once a quarter. So you have multiple months to get ready for the next track. But make sure you sign up, though, because you have to be a member at the www.eragaming.gg. You have to have an iRacing membership first so that you can even get on the platform. After you have that, make sure you just sign up with our membership club and compete in these events, because there's really not that many events out there that are giving away prize money. So we wanted to make something and create something that gave people the opportunity to win real cash prizes. These aren't IOUs, these aren't credits, these aren't gift cards, these aren't products. You're winning real life cash to use for whatever you want.
And a change in the battle for second. Garrett Maines let the race car do the talking. Was able to get up and on the inside of Vicente Salas through 5 and 6. That has been a very popular passing spot on track tonight. Not even necessarily the heartbreaking zone 5, but the exit of that corner up the hill to 6. and Vicente Salas now drops to a race low P3, and Garrett Maines is at a race high P2. None of that match for Bobby Zalenski. Your race leader right now has secured the most laps led tonight. Again, he has led the last 27 consecutive after Vicente led the opening 2, and this time as he comes up the hill to the Road America straight, he will have 30 laps down and only 10 laps to go in this race, so he is continuing his impressive pace.
And the lead has now eclipsed 7 seconds as well. And guys, we kind of talk about his opportunity right now. He just has to go on cruise control to win $4,000. You go back to that first NASCAR Cup Series race here at Road America, August 12th, 1956. Tim Flock that day took home $2,950. We are awarding more money for this sim race than the first ever Cup Series winner got by over $1,000 here tonight.
That's such a cool stat right there. Can you believe that? This actual event right here, that's a virtual event, it's really a gaming event. It's a game, right? Esports, and it's giving away more cash prizes than the first ever Cup Series event here at Road America years and years and years ago. You know what? That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
And maybe my favorite stat I've ever heard.
Or racing reference, I might add.
So it's a good source. Yeah, I think that might be my favorite stat I've ever heard. I think we're going to have to bring that up on every single Equity Prime Mortgage broadcast.
We're going to look back in the past. Look in the past. Okay, all right, when was the first time the Cup Series came to Bristol? All right, well, we're going to take it away.
And just to, to add to that, the totals that have been given out over the course of the 6 races prior to this, since the very first Winter Bowl back on December 6th of 2020, more than $30,000 have been given out to drivers who have competed in these Omega Cup events. What we will do, though, as we get set to hand out another $5,000 at about 9.5 laps from now, is take one final opportunity to step aside. Bobby Zalenski is still in control. Can he hang on for his first career ERA race win? We'll find out next. Don't go anywhere. From Road America, you're watching the Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Summer Bowl on Podium Esports. And back live virtually from Road America here in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, iRacing's virtual National Park of Speed, as we bring you back into the Podium Esports booth. Evan Pasoko, Jesse Wuji, Devin Henry alongside with you, with our producer downstairs, Ryan Bauer. We are inside of what is soon to be 8 laps to go in this race. Bobby Zalenski looking to join the list of past Omega Cup Series race winners that includes some of the biggest names on the service, including Garrett Maines, Garrett Conrad, Vicente Salas, Mike Sturgill, and Parker Retzlaff have been the drivers who have took home the biggest share of the $30,000 who have been given out all time in this series, and about to wrap up the second annual Summer Bowl here shortly. You can see the battle scars on many of the drivers throughout the field tonight. Jason Rayhawk, one of them, who started 18th position, has been able to fight his way through to P7, tied for the biggest mover with Trent Cusack, also plus 11, back in the number 10 position. There's the on-board look with him, and now it gets to the point where that stamina is really kicking in, right? We're past halfway. You try to not make mistakes. You've already got your pit service down to the end. You also, Jesse, may not necessarily be fighting with somebody near you, so you really got to focus to keep it on the racetrack and bring it home.
Yeah, that focus is crucial, especially now with 8 laps to go. I mean, these drivers have now gone through about 32 laps or so, and that's a lot of laps, because these laps, they're not like the old track where, you know, they're 20-something seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, whatever. These laps are, you know, over 2 minutes, 2 minutes 10, 11, 12, 15 seconds. That's a long time, and when you add it up, I mean, they've been super focused. There's not a lot of time to rest on this track, even when you're going on the straights. I mean, now your mind is super focused and really hyper focused on, okay, now that I've picked up this amount of speed going into this corner, how much brake am I going to use because of the way my tires feel or the way I'm feeling or whatever it is. So a lot of different things going on in their mind. The mental fatigue is real. We'll see who can keep the proper focus to make it to the end. We got 8 laps to go, but a lot can happen between now and then.
And to your point, Jesse, we've talked a lot today about some of the comparisons that are legitimate with that mental and physical fatigue. I mean, it's not the exact same as real-world racing, but there is some fatigue physically when it comes to sim racing. And we've talked a lot of sim to reality, and someone who's had a lot of real-life experience and then a lot of sim success as well. You go back to that inaugural ERA winner, Parker Retzlaff, who is now in a part-time NASCAR Xfinity Series schedule for Ryan Sieg and his team, while also racing the Coke Series for RFK Racing. And this is someone who you've gotten to race with in the real world, Jesse, and he's been able to run that part-time Xfinity schedule. I've got to talk to him at Phoenix during that first start and whatnot, and you know, it's one of those things where now you have this guy who's won an ERA in your series, Jesse, and then you get to race with him in the real world too. And just how incredible that kind of is sitting in your mind when there was a NASCAR Xfinity Series race that included Josh Berry, Dale Jr., and Parker Retzlaff, some former Coke pros, in the real world in the Xfinity Series.
It is so cool to see people who have raced in these events and then now have taken their racing to real life. Parker won our first ever event that we ran at Nashville, the fairgrounds. And then now, you know, he started racing ARCA. You know, he did well there, and now he's racing Xfinity Series races and does well there as well. And to see people really go from this whole virtual to reality has been incredible. It's something that we really strive to see and get out of the drivers. We want to figure out ways to help these drivers go from that virtual to reality. That's why we pay out the payouts that we pay out, because, hey, if you come into this series, if you run the EPM Omega Cup Series events, if you ended up winning, let's say, all 4 events in a year, that's about $16,000 right there. You can do a lot with $16,000. You can go run some, you know, even SCCA events. You can go run some late models. You can go do whatever you want with it, but it gives you that opportunity to really take your skills from reality.
You talk about, you know, a Retzlaff who competes in the Coke Series, has that Xfinity Series schedule, a Josh Berry, who is a notable figure on the iRacing service for quite some time, right? Full-time as well, with the Xfinity Series opportunity for Junior Motorsports. And it doesn't always have to be that level, right? There's so many people who race a late model at their local track, so many people who do go-karts or legends racing that coincides with their sim experiences. Listen, we got to stop looking at poor Farrison Bachman there, because every time we put the camera on him, he spins. So I think we're jinxing him. So I'm going to cut off our producer, Ryan Bauer. No more, because poor Farrison is just feeling it, man. Every time we go to him, he's off track, and every time we go to him, somebody else is off track nearby as well. So that's jinxed. No more showing him. But yeah, I mean, there's so many people who have been able to, again, use this service, not to build a race car driver, right? You're not going to run on the sim, jump in an Xfinity Series car, and go run in the top 5, right? But it gives you a significant advantage when you get into grassroots racing to know racecraft, to know race etiquette, to know, the ins and out of a race car. I mean, a lot of the people on the surface here tonight have fixed setup, right? But a lot of these people build their own setups on the sim, right? Just that moderate understanding of the physics and the mechanics of a race car as well can give you such an up if you want to race competitively, or even if you want to race simply recreationally. That is and will always be my favorite thing about iRacing, is that sim to reality ladder that we see play out for so many drivers. And you mentioned Parker Retzlaff back in December of 2020 won the inaugural ERA event. Who's the next name that we're going to be talking about here on one of these Wednesday night shows and then not know it, but in a couple of years they might be behind the wheel of a NASCAR Camping World truck or Xfinity Series machine? I think it's so cool to see, and you're seeing a lot more of that as these years are able to continue to progress. Late in this race, though, we're watching some of the battles, seeing how this thing's going to play out, talking about attrition and whatnot. The one thing that I love so much, Jesse, about the ERA in these events is, with the exception of the Spring Bowl, which has been at Daytona for both years, we don't see repeat tracks, right? We've been to Nashville, Dakota, Bristol, Fontana, and now Road America here tonight. It challenges these drivers, right? When we introduced the first one of these races in this next-gen car, we talked about a lot of changes, right? These cars built very different than the Gen 6s. We've talked a lot about outside of the car what you can do, and some of those challenges are, right? VR or monitors, stock car wheel or formula wheel, but the way that the cars actually operate quite different with the sequential shifter, and shifting is another big thing that is different in these cars, but you can also customize to yourself, right? That old car, the 4-speed manual transmission cars, you could do an H pattern shifter, right, on the service, or you could still use paddles if you really wanted to. Well, now here you've got an extra gear. So if you're using the paddles, you can do that, or you can use a sequential shifter, which matches in the car. But I feel like paddles or the H pattern still the most common on the service. And I got to tell you, it would feel really weird using an H pattern and shift it into 5th in a stock car, right? But the real life cars are on those sequential gearbox. That gearbox is in these cars, but on iRacing, you can use different equipment and hardware to get through the gears. And again, that all comes down to driver preference. You can run it like it is in the real world to get that most realistic experience, or you can customize it to your preferences for speed.
You can definitely do that. And with these drivers on the sim, some of them do have that paddle shift, and they use that, but that's not what we have in the real cars. We have the H patterns in the Xfinity Series, and the old Gen 6s used to have H patterns as well. Now these Gen 7s, they have the sequential, and you're going up and down on those things. So you're downshifting, you're pressing it forward. If you're upshifting, you're pulling it back. And you have to get used to that. And if you're not used to it, you might go into a corner thinking that you're shifting the this gear or that, and you might think you're supposed to go up or down or whatever it is, and you go the wrong way, and it screws you up. It definitely happens. It's happened to real life drivers before. But the sequential is all very, very interesting. I know on my sim, I'm able to flip a switch, which allows my shifter to go into sequential mode. So it's really cool to get that real feeling. And that's what I do to practice for real life. I just try to make it feel as realistic as possible. I don't use the paddle shifts unless I'm getting into a paddle shifted vehicle.
Another impressive number is 4. The only 4 cars on the lead lap are those Coke Series drivers right now. 15 drivers total are still in this race, but the only 4 on the lead lap are those Coke Series pros. And again, Zelensky's pace just continues to be impressive. He's actually started to slow things down a little bit. 2:13 last lap was actually slowest of the drivers in the top three. I think Bobby is kind of stretching the back out a little bit, taking a deep breath. You wouldn't know it by that face, because that's the same face he has when he's in a side-by-side battle for, a Coke Series race win with 300K on the line. But I promise you, right there, right, loosen it up a little bit, just trying to not push that race car too far. I think he knows he's got this as long as he keeps it on the racetrack. So he's going to play a little bit with that 18-second margin, take it easy, make sure it gets home. And what the gap's also going to allow him to do is, if he catches more lap traffic, that has been a huge point of problems for lead lap cars tonight, has been catching lapped cars in the middle of a corner and making contact. It took Clampett out of things earlier. It's happened with several other drivers. Because Zelensky has such an advantage, he can afford to not throw it up the inside of a lapped car if he were to catch one, right? Set him up on the run off of the corner. So you're going to see Bobby Zelensky, who we complimented earlier for having such good pace on the long run, back it down a little bit. You'll see that margin close, and he's going to be smart about getting that Interstate Batteries Toyota Camry to the end of this race.
4 laps to go, and things are somewhat calming down, but we'll see. Mistakes can still happen. Still got to stay focused. Last few laps, tires are worn down. Fuel is getting a little bit drier. Drivers are tired, and they're like, I want this race to be over. We'll see if everyone can maintain their composure, but it's been really cool watching these drivers battle it out all day. To see them, virtually be able to compete for prize money in our Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Series Summerbowl. We have these events multiple times a year. It's cool to watch these members jump on, compete against each other, and just compete for the money. I mean, it's fun. It's cool. Where else can you do this? It's just a really fun time, and to see the focus on the sensei's face. I mean, he is just making sure, no mistakes. You can watch his eyes right there. His eyes looking past the corner, looking to see what's coming up next. He's not just focused on what's directly in front of the car, but he's focused on, hey, how am I going to get through this corner, and how am I going to do it right? But Sensei is such a great driver. Man, I know he's been battling, but hey, he's still at least, sitting there in the top 5, which, top 5, you have opportunities to bring home money, but he's doing everything he can to stay in it. And these last few laps are winding down, but man, these drivers have been absolute warriors this entire evening.
And with 3 laps to go, 2 guys are plus 11 on this day. Jason Reichkoch right now is sitting in that 7th position, and for him, it's not a money-paying position, but he was one of the guys who did not take a qualifying time. You see that there is no hood on that car, so he has been through a lot in this race. He's been able to gain himself 11 positions, and along with that also, Trent Cusack, even though he's 3 laps down, he started 21st on the grid, and he's been able to have himself a top 10, and for now, it looks like he's going to give himself a top 10 in what is a ridiculous endurance race, even for sim racers, because of how much mental focus you have to have in a race like this. And remember, the top 5 get paid out, so Aaron Ramon, he's got a 26-second lead over Luis Vega right now for that final money spot on the day, just to be able to survive this race and have yourself a good time here at Road America and bring you home a little bit of money. Ramon is right there. The first part of this race, guys, he didn't really have himself inside that top 5. It came through the marathon of this event for him to work his way up there through consistency and have himself in a position to make some money. Then you got guys like this. Richard Woodruff had a couple of errors on pit road that gave him penalties, but he's got the cleanest looking car out here, guys. I mean, look, he's still got the hood attached. The sides look pretty clean for the most part, so he has himself a little bit of a clean car and an opportunity to catch up to Kyle Wisner, try to pick off that 8th position. He's less than a second behind and has a couple of laps to do it, so he might have an opportunity to get himself a little bit more. And one other point, guys, the pure focus of these pro drivers. Last time around, 2 11s and 2 12s for your 4 pros. And man, this late in a race on a track this demanding, man, is that impressive.
Still, I mean, I think I'm looking, aside from pit stops, Bobby Zelensky has made 2 laps of the 39 that were slower than a 2:12. He did a 2:13.1 on lap number 19 and a 2:13.2 on lap 36. So only 2 laps were slower than a pace at which 99.9% of people on the surface are not going to be able to match, and that is their cruise control speed, right? I talk about Zelensky is not going to push it, right? He's taking it a little bit easier. His last lap was a 1:11.7. That lap time is faster than the fastest lap time for 17 of the 21 cars in the field. And that is his cruise control speed. You see his fastest, a 1:10.3, more than a full second better than the next closest driver, and maybe a little bit of relief as he comes up the hill because Zelensky looking for the white flag.
4K, baby, 4K. That close to 4K, man.
He can feel it.
Oh my goodness, the final lap, this is it. And that focus and intense, his slowest lap was 2:13. Most of his laps have been 2:12, 2:11s. That's absolutely incredible. I mean, just to run one lap at that speed is incredible, let alone to do this entire race at those speeds and just be as clean as a whistle. I'd like to see this guy jump into a real race car and see what he can do.
I'm sure he'd like to, too.
Yeah, most definitely. Hey, who knows what's gonna happen? Hey.
Just call up Coach Gibbs and be like, hey, you got a seat to fill this weekend. I know a thing or two about him on the service, at least. He's got a little bit of lap traffic to get around. How about this? Trying to lap Logan Clampett, and Clampett felt the pressure. Clampett's going to go wide. Zelensky's going to go on through. Only 3 cars left on the lead lap right now, and Clampett can't help but to laugh at the absurdity of what Bobby Zelensky can do on a racetrack like this.
Gosh.
No cautions in this race, and you're lapping 4th place, who's another pro. That's insane.
Oh my God. So good. So good. That is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible.
And you'd have to think they probably learned a lot. Evan, you're talking about the upcoming Coke Series races and going on the road courses. I have a feeling that Bobby learned a little bit, and I think the other 3 are probably going to do a little bit of studying here after tonight when they're done.
Yeah, they're going to go over the tape, right? They're going to look at Bobby Zelensky. Yes, I know it's not the way the cars will be set up for their Coke Series race, which will be open setup compared to the fixed setup format here tonight. But this is kind of some intel that you don't normally get on a driver ahead of a Coke Series race. And Zelensky a little bit wide. He recovers though. Just a chuckle. Just a little bit of a chuckle. He straightens it out. He's going to have some fun with it up the hill. Zelensky is the EPM Cup Series winner at Road America and wins $4,000.
Wow, that was, I wonder if he did that on purpose. I wonder if he actually did that on purpose. Great job, great run, great drive. That was really incredible to watch. $4,000 goes to him, and we have another $1,000 going to the next 4 places for this event. This is real cash money. People are going home with real money for competing in a virtual event on iRacing in the EPM Omega Cup Series Summerbowl.
6th different winner all time in the Omega Cup Series to get a race win. 6 different winners in 7 races. Goes to show you how competitive this series is and how competitive each and every single race is. And Zelensky joins the list. That includes many other pro drivers. Retzlaff, Salas, Means, they've all done it before as well. And that is not a bad payday. And I will tell you what, gentlemen, when we go Coke Series racing here at Road America on July 5th, you bet that one of the points I'll bring up is that Bobby Zelensky won $4,000 in an ERA race at Road America just a couple of weeks prior. And I'm sure that, again, this is a great confidence booster for him, known as one of the best on the road courses in that series, alongside other big names like Mitchell DeYoung that he'll be fighting against. Zelensky did good tonight, but I wouldn't be surprised, Evan, if he even didn't show them everything, right? I mentioned that it's a unique opportunity. Zelensky typically wouldn't do an open practice session, right? Weeks before an eNASCAR race where other pros can watch what he's doing. So they're definitely going to save this race replay session, use it as tape. But even with as fast as he was tonight, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Zelensky was still holding on to a couple of secrets.
Yeah, these guys are smart. You race for a lot of money in the Coke Series. There's no way that he had everything in that toolbox out. But I think what's going to scare any Coke Series driver who sees or hears about this, what's going to be the most scary, how long until we have that race, Evan? How much longer?
A little bit over a month.
You don't think that Bobby Zelensky is going to get better by then? Better? So
that's a scary thought, by the way. Better than this.
Scary thought. So you got to imagine that he's only going to bring even more, because not only one, did he not use everything probably, but number two, he's going to be even better in about a month's time at this track.
He's one of the best. One of the best on the road courses, sim-wide, not only in a stock car and back in the grass as he celebrates on the front straightaway. Bobby Zelensky is your 2022 eRacing Association Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Summer Bowl champion. As we take a look at your EPM Empowering People More full race results tonight from Road America. Final margin of victory clocking in at 16.3 seconds. Zelensky walks away with the $4,000 prize. Main Salas, Clampett, and Aaron Ramon in the 36 are the drivers who walk away tonight in the money. All those 5 drivers started in the top 5, so single car Q speed led to long-term race speed. They finished ahead of the likes of Luis Vega in 6th position, Jason Rajak in 7th, with Kyle Wisner in 8th, Richard Woodruff in 9th, and Thomas Mrazek rounding out our top 10, Devin.
Trent Cusack brings it home in 11th with David Barnes in 12th, Julian Ricci in 13th, Farrison Bachman in 14th, Bruno Castro Alves in 15th, Cody Smith brings it home in 16th, 17th is Ryan Barrios, Christopher Reagan brings it home in 18th, 19th goes to David Chestar, Nicholas Compton in 20th, and Thomas Edwards rounds out the 21-car field here at Road America.
Look at the bottom at your full race results tonight, brought to you by Equity Prime Mortgage. As we head down to ERA Victory Lane, Bobby Zelensky is your Summer Bowl champion, and Jesse's standing by with him.
Bobby, how does it feel to win your first ERA event, to take home $4,000? I mean, what does that mean to you?
It's fantastic. I didn't think I was worried about my pace because I got beat by 4/10 in qualifying by Vicente. So just starting there, I wasn't sure I'd be able to get it, but I had pretty good race pace, the Interstate Batteries machine. But yeah, it's great to be a part of this series championship. I wanted to do this last year, but I just couldn't. And this year I can, and I'm also looking forward to the next one. I think it's Irwindale.
Yeah, no, you did an absolute amazing job. And to watch you out there, just to see that consistency, I mean, to watch you lap after lap after lap, run those lap times. I mean, any one of those drivers out there could have, wished they could even run any of your lap times, even for qualifying, and you were just putting those laps on during the race. I mean, how were you able to keep it that consistent throughout the race?
I guess just experience. This is like, I've been doing road NASCAR for 5.5 years now and been pretty successful at it. It was just a surprise to be so good on the race run. I guess I just didn't get my tires prepped well enough for Q or something compared to Vicente, because I just had a lot of pace on them. I was able to kind of dive up the inside and take it. And then I started saving a bit of fuel, just lifting and coasting into the braking zones and kind of conserving tires at the same time. So that helped my tires and also got me to lap 20, because I was you had to save about like half a gallon of fuel, I'd say. So just practice, and I love road racing with NASCAR. It's my thing.
That's absolutely incredible. And you definitely showed it for sure, showed how good you are on the road courses. And now you have $4,000 coming to you. What does somebody like you do with $4,000? Someone who's been sim racing for a while, how does that feel?
Yeah, it's great. I kind of need the money at the moment. It's going to pay some bills for sure for a while because I'm moving soon. So got some costs there to take care of. So just in my personal life, really helps, of course.
It's absolutely incredible. You did a really good job, and to see you out there, we got a little bit scared at the end when you went through the grass right there, but you were all right. But it's really cool to have you on here, competing, doing an amazing job, really showing everybody, hey, this is how you really drive one of these cars, especially on the road course. That was cool to see. But thank you so much for competing in our Omega Cup Series events. And we look forward to having you at more. I mean, we're going to continue to put these things on every single quarter. And the more we can have people out like you, it'll be incredible to watch, and you'll put on great shows.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, looking forward to the next one for sure.
It is your race winner tonight. Bobby Zelensky will slide on down now and talk with your second place finisher, Garrett Maines, already an ERA race winner from earlier this year in Daytona. Tonight, Garrett, it's going to be second place for you. Tell us about this one, right? It was kind of the story of the big four with you, Bobby, Vicente, Logan, and on those long runs, it seemed like you kept catching up to Chente. Took a couple of tries, though, to get all the way by him.
Yeah, that first run, I was able to hang with him for the beginning, and I think that was the confidence booster I needed because I didn't really expect to be on that same level. I started struggling with the tires and slipped back, and then I saw Vicente was struggling too. I was like, okay, all right, and I was able to make a charge to him. I just couldn't seem to make it stick when I got close. I really started to slide the tires when I got right behind him. But after the pit stop, I think he got a little aggressive. There was a lap car in between. He tried to split it. That didn't work out, and I was able to basically come out right behind him. And we tangled at some point. He started overshooting some of the corners, and I was able to capitalize on that, and he got loose once. And I don't know. I think there was a bit of a netcode contact, and I think he was trying to make up for it a little bit and get back to me, and just misjudged it and got in there hot. Got me turned around, got himself turned around. Then it was a race back to the asphalt. I lost that one. And then I was in my own head trying to catch back up to him. But thankfully, I was able to get back to him. I don't know how I made that send stick into 5, but that was the race-winning move, and we checked out from there.
You're going to walk away with a nice bit of cash. In these Gen 7 cars, we spent a lot of time over the course of the broadcast talking about differences between these and the Gen 6s, unique things that you can do from behind the wheel at home to make yourself more comfortable in the car, whether it is using a different method of shifting, using a different wheel. What have you been learning trying to adapt to this next generation of NASCAR stock car on these road courses?
Well, I actually really struggled with the braking on this because the master cylinders were much less sensitive than I would prefer. So I was having a hard time getting into the corners, which I think was kind of evident with a lot of people. I was actually getting in there a lot deeper than most. And that was one of the things I was having to train myself to do because it wasn't the normal brake pattern that I'm familiar with, because you can't customize that for fixed setup. And it was definitely not what I would run. But I've gotten pretty comfortable with my settings for open, and I think Coke this year will be really good. I've really taken a liking to this track, and I learned a lot from this race. It was a huge confidence booster to be able to run with Vicente because I know he is one of the best in the series. Bobby checked out there, but I gotta take some notes. I don't know what he was doing on the long run, but he was taking off for sure.
We were joking you guys were going to save this replay and use it as a film session on guys like Bobby and them. I know it was a fixed setup race. That's going to be different compared to how you would like to set the car up when the Coke Series does go to Road America on July the 5th. But what did you learn tonight, and what are some things that you've maybe picked up on that still need a little bit of work approaching that race in a few weeks?
I think I'm just missing a little bit here and there. I think I got a little impatient as the run went on, just kind of finding that balance of, not driving in too deep and not pushing the car too hard on the exit. I couldn't quite figure out where that line was in the long run. It's actually the first road course race I've done in this car. So it was, a good showing to start. I think it's a good place for me to build off of, and I'm confident going into the Coke Series now. We got 2 road courses. I did really well at Watkins Glen last year. I actually struggled at Road America. I don't foresee that happening this year. I think I've taken quite a few lessons here in the last few weeks doing GT cars. So I think we're well prepared.
Looking forward to seeing how you and that Elliott Sadler Esports team do in a couple of weeks. Before we let you go for tonight, though, Garrett, sponsors, shout-outs, all those good folks. Who makes it happen for you?
Yeah, I got to give a huge shout-out to ChevyLiners.com, Leaf Filter, Gutter Protection, Colleague Racing, all the guys at Elliott Sadler Esports, MCU Body, Lennox, Chris Rice, Matt Colleague. Huge shout-out to Vicente there. Great racing with him the entire race. That was a blast. One of the best road course races I've actually had in a stock car, and that went on and on and on. So thriller to be able to put that together tonight, and thank you guys for putting it all on tonight.
Tell you what, appreciate you being a part of this event and putting on a show for us. Again, congratulations on a good finish. $500 is not a bad night out. We'll catch you next time.
Absolutely.
Your second place finisher tonight for Mid-America, Garrett Maines, comes home in the runner-up spot. Third place tonight belongs to Vicente Salas. He's down trackside with our Devin Henry.
Yeah, Vicente Salas goes ahead and brings home a third place position. He'll take home $250 as well. And what Garrett just said was, that was one of the most fun road racing events that he's ever had, just racing with you for basically 162 miles. Take me through what your night was like. Very demanding night, as well as you and Garrett went back and forth basically the entire race.
Yeah, I think, it's one of the more unlucky races for me this year. Obviously, we started in the lead, held the lead for the first couple laps. Going into the corner on the back straightaway, I think he kind of missed his braking marker and got into me, and that kind of pushed me a little wider than I wanted to be, and it let Bobby slip by. And from there on, the dirty air kind of caught me out. But it was definitely fun racing Garrett. At the end there, I got loose into the corner. He got side by side with me, got me jacked up, and I was just loose the whole straightaway, and I wasn't really trying to get into him. So either way, it was an awesome race, and hopefully people enjoyed it.
So with this track, with this car, it's demanding, both physically and mentally exhausting. What did you learn today that you can take, maybe not just with this combo, but even just this car on road courses moving forward?
I think something I can take is, as long as you protect the rears, you can basically drive as hard as you want to. I feel like I kind of underdrove the car a good bit that first run, and that's what allowed Bobby to pull away. And then that second run, even with the damage I had for the large majority of the run, we were running very, very close to his time. So either way, I think we definitely learned a bunch that we can take to the NASCAR race in a couple weeks, and I'm pretty happy with what we got. So. And
you are the winningest driver in Omega Cup history with your victory in Summer Bowl and Fall Bowl. What's it been like to come and race for $4,000? You take home $250 today. What's it been like being able to come and race every quarter here in whatever season bowl you happen to visit?
Yeah, it's honestly such an honor. Shout out to Jesse, Matt, and everybody at ERA Gaming that put on these events. It's really cool to be able to come out here and race some of the best and win cash prizes when you do well. So always fun coming here. Hopefully I'll be back for the next one, and maybe we'll be a spot or two higher.
Well, $250 today, and definitely looking for some more in the future. Congratulations on your third place finish, Vicente.
Thank you very much.
Vicente Salas brings it home at the end of your podium.
That's a word with all of our top 3 finishers. A big thanks to Bobby Zelensky, Garrett Maines, and Vicente Salas for lending us a little bit of time post-race in this one. Jesse, and again, chose a different road course this time around, from COTA to Road America. This is such an iconic venue to be able to see those pro drivers, certainly very impressive at what they can do, but also really enjoyed watching the battle for 5th, right? The battle for 10th, those other things throughout the field with those other ERA members putting on a show and having some fun here tonight with us.
It was really cool watching them just come out and compete. And when everyone's fighting for that $5,000 prize pool, people are willing to do whatever it takes to get there. And we saw that. People got underneath each other, people bumped each other, people spun out, people got into the grass, people made mistakes going on to pit road. I mean, so many different things happened. Definitely was not a boring race at all. It was fun, it was exciting, a lot of action happening all the way around the track with all different all different parts. I mean, from the front to the back, you name it, there was always something to watch. So it was really cool to watch these drivers come out here and compete in our Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Series Summer Bowl. I look forward to watching them come out to the next event, which will be our Fall Bowl, and we'll be back on the ovals, having a good time there and watching these drivers compete once again for $5,000 cash prizes. But hey, if you're watching this replay, if you're watching it right now, if you're watching it tomorrow, a month from now, whatever it is, make sure you head to www.eragaming.gg and just sign up to become a member so that you can compete as well. We put on these events, we plan on putting them on for a very long time, and it's just a great opportunity to come compete against some of the best in the system on iRacing. And just see what you can do against them. Who knows? Maybe you'll outrun them.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that anytime soon. So I promise I'll be here in September. Devin, it was happy to have you along for the ride with us. You're going to go for the cash next time, or are you going to hang out with us again? I hope you had fun on the show and joining us tonight.
The only cash that I get on iRacing is the cash that I spend to go and buy content to go race. That's the only exchange happening when I'm racing on iRacing. So no, I'll definitely be up here with you, Evan, inside the booth and watching these pros go at it. But hey, like Jesse said, if you guys think you could have hung with those 4 up in the front, you're more than welcome to test it out anytime. But when you come to a track like Road America, physical demanding, mentally demanding, and it was interesting hearing the pros at the start of the race talk about how important those rear tires would be on this next-gen car. And then Vicente saying, yeah, I think the goal is so long as you protect those rear tires, you can kind of do whatever you want. So it's interesting to see the perception of those rear tires change throughout the race. And excited to see how these guys continue to learn this next-gen car as we continue to race it here with the eRacing League.
And if you're on the service, take those notes, right? If you're already on iRacing, go drive a next-gen car at a road course, right? Try to take those notes from those pros, continue to build on those skills. And again, if you love this road course challenge, this Summer Bowl has kind of become the road course challenge for the eRacing Association. If the road courses aren't your cup of tea, that's fine. Plenty of oval stuff coming up. I know, looking forward to the Fall Bowl, which will complete then 2 full calendar years of ERA Racing. But until next time, that is it for us here tonight from iRacing's virtual Road America. So on behalf of our entire team at Podium Esports, for our partners at Equity Prime Mortgage, for the eRacing Association, and everybody involved in tonight's broadcast, including Matt Casto, Kevin Johnson, and Sean Yoder at the eRacing Association, for Brandon Davis and Michael Hall at Race Control, for Ryan DeBauer, Gary Sexton, and John Theodore at Podium Esports, and for your broadcast team tonight, for Ryan Bauer downstairs, for my colleagues Jesse Uji, Devin Henry, and myself, Evan Pasoko. I want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Bobby Zelensky. He has won many things in his iRacing pro career. He can now call himself an eRacing Association winner. Till next time, though, good night from Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin.
struggle finding someone to race with, someone to compete with, or flat out, someone just to give the Gap sauce? Well, you should check out the Gapum app.
Gapum is the only app that will allow you to race people locally, share videos, and attend events.
And after you race, you can actually take your racing video and post it in the Gapum Postum section so the whole world can see. And even if you're not a racer, you can always head to our Gapum app crew mode section where you and some friends can continue to meet up, go to car meets, go to car events, car shows, anything that has nothing to do with going to the racetrack.
Gapum is a one-stop shop for the car world.
Looks like I just got a match on the Gapum app. Time to serve someone some Gapple beans.
Ready, set, Gapum.